to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and good evening. Is there any public comment from the board?
Yes, I had one thing to talk about. The Lunenburg's Farmers Market is going to present Poopapalooza this coming Saturday, a farm tour to make your garden grow. Composted manure from a variety of farm animals will be available for sale on Saturday, April 7th from 8 to 2. There'll be a $5 donation that will give you a map of the participating farms, and you'll get your first 5 gallons of manure free. To get your map, you need to go to 188 Flat Hill Road, H&M Farms. Have fun.
Anybody want to try to follow that one?
I tried to get somebody else to do it, but there weren't any comers.
Is there any public comment from the public? Sir.
My name's John Baker from 53 Chase Road, and the reason I'm here this evening is to thank Paula Bertram for her 12 years of service to the town. Thought you weren't going to be here for a while. Might have been in a boat already. No, I mean sometimes it's a no-win job, but I want to thank you personally for giving your time and your effort and all that business.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Came just for that. Any other public comment? Please.
Good evening. Kim Mayhew, 684 Flat Hill Road. I'm the Lunenburg 4-H leader. I wanted to let everyone know that Lunenburg 4-H will be hosting the first Lunenburg Earth Day celebration at Wallace Park on April 22nd from 1 to 4. There will be local vendors like H&M Farm, In the Meadow, and Peace Farm, and hopefully many more. There's also going to be plenty of space for playing with chalk and some bubble experiments, as well as activities using recycled goods. Come on out and support Lunenburg 4-H's commitment to taking care of our earth and our community. By participating in local Earth Day activity, you're not only supporting your community, you're also contributing to the health of our whole world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The town will also be at that activity with a booth to facilitate anybody that would like to volunteer for town boards and committees. And I believe that we'll also be doing the stormwater rain barrels and
Compost bins.
Compost bins.
Compost bins and rain barrels, yes.
Any other public comment? Please.
Tom Alonzo, 284 Lancaster Avenue. I'm before you for public comment as the Vice Chair of the Board of Directors of the Boys and Girls Club. Not this Friday, 2 Fridays from now, Friday, April 13th at 7 p.m. at Lunenburg High School, we will have our 6th annual Are You Smarter Than Our 6th Graders? It is, for those who haven't seen it, it pits teams of adults against each other with the help of 6th graders in a Jeopardy-style format. It is one of the biggest fundraisers that we have during the year. It's a lot of fun, a lot of audience participation and enthusiasm. Teams dress up with themes, and it's an overall fun night. I am very honored again for the 6th year to be the MC of the game show. I encourage everybody to come out. Support us with your attendance, support us by being part of a team, or you can support us by making a donation online at bgcluboflunenburg.org. And there's a place to donate. We're looking for sponsors for 6th graders, for questions, for categories, etc. But most importantly, I hope people come out and have a great time in supporting what is a wonderful organization in the town. I will leave this flyer with the board.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please.
Susan Whalen, 377 Flat Hill Road. And I have some handouts. Do you want them? I think I've got enough there.
It's okay, I won't take one if you don't.
The reason that I'm here this evening is to express concerns about the excessive stormwater and flooding issues on Flat Hill Road. I've been kind of working on this for the past 16 years, and I haven't made much headway. I also want to inform the board about different things I've learned along the way, and kind of appeal to see if different departments or committees can work together in resolving this. The water, there are a number of concerns as I've listed here. I came up with 11. I'm sure there were even more than that. The water is actually cracking the new pavement along the front of 268 Flat Hill and 49 Cortlandt Circle, which is a new development. And I've got a map on the last page, and it's kind of crude, but it shows that there is an excessive amount of stormwater coming from the southern property edge of 268 Flat Hill Road. And the DPW has identified that the water is coming from the undeveloped lot behind that. However, in the past, that undeveloped lot has not had standing water in it. Previous owners from the 60s to the 90s actually plowed and planted in that. So that is of a concern of where that water is coming from. There is the water that flows out of that lot goes down to the intersection of Cortlandt and Flat Hill, forms ice in the winter, and that's also a school bus stop. And there is concern about the safety there. Further up on Flat Hill Road, on the northern part of the Allison's property, there are two culverts that have had excessive stormwater drainage into that land and is now creating wetlands there. The sump pump is running every 3 to 4 minutes at 305 Flat Hill. And there's stormwater runoff, water from the detention ponds and sediment that come through a culvert over to the east side of the road, which is the side that the Allisons and the Whalens live on. And it discharges from a pipe halfway down the field there, Allison South Field, with a lot of velocity and volume, and kind of floods that whole area out, carrying sediment down, and it's eroding the area. And the water is also crossing into the southern corner of Allison's Field by their entrance, and then creeps under the stone wall onto my property. There are probably some other things I didn't quite catch here, but anyways. And then I have a similar icing problem out by my mailbox and driveway in the winter, where there's lots of flooding and freezing. Over the course of time, I've learned some things that I didn't know before when I started this whole thing. One is that there are two detention basins, I will call them for a better word, located in the village at Flat Hill. And apparently somewhere, I don't know the year it occurred, but the exit outlet, the exit orifice has been altered. And apparently, from what I understand, it was done by the residents of the village, Flat Hill. that's one thing. I don't think that was reflected on any of the design plans that had been submitted to the planning board. There were also two landscape catch basins that were installed at 49 Cortlandt Circle that drain into the detention basin. Only one of them is accounted for on the as-built design from 2006. So that's additional water that's going in that I'm unclear as to whether or not the size of the detention basin was taken into account for that extra water. And apparently there was a trench that was dug. This goes back to 2008, not the present people that live there. Was dug around the sump of the septic mound on 268 Flat Hill Road to help divert the water going into 49 Cortlandt Circle. That adds to the volume of the water coming out onto the road. And another interesting thing is there appears to be no plan for the maintenance, schedule, and cleaning of these detention ponds. And as a result, I doubt very much that they're functioning as they were designed. Am I over my time?
We're getting the point.
Well, I summarized the actions that the DPW has taken. They have not been really effective at all. And the questions that I ask is, like, where is all this water coming from? There happens to be, if you look on the map, this area kind of in the center of the Cortlandt Circle. There's a pond and wetlands, and that is at the top of the hill, like that's at the highest elevation.
That's the highest elevation, so that wetland is above you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, it makes sense that water flows downhill and that some of this water in that undeveloped lot and the excessive water that's flowing in those culverts and then going down Flat Hill Road could possibly be coming from that. It could be coming from all the, it's probably coming from all the impervious surfaces in the development. And I'm not sure if the drainage plan took all this into account when it was designed. Because it's just adding to the whole, yes, we can go and we can control this water, which is going to have to be done, but if we can find the source of the water and perhaps deal with it there, that might be to the town's advantage.
Could I chime in?
Yes, please.
Susan Whalen had contacted myself and other, I guess the Conservation Commission and some other boards.
Planning board.
Back on March 19th.
The chairs.
And so this Saturday, I took a walk around the property with Ms. Whalen and Mr. Allison, and man, it is squishy wet up there. You know, I think it's the top of a hill. How come it's so wet? She was right. The first coating of pavement was laid down last year, but already on the side, the Cortlandt Circle side, the ground is eroded, and there is like 2 feet into the road, there are several 100-foot cracks in the pavement. So, you know, the structure, the road structure has been seriously compromised, and we just put the first layer of paving on it. You know, as road commissioners, we asked the town to approve a $4 million debt exclusion to pave all the town roads. Included was $500,000 to address stormwater issues that could degrade the new roads prior to paving. In fact, consultants were hired to look for such potential issues. I remember back in 2016 when we were talking about this at a December Board of Selectmen meeting, Director Roddiquin said, when this plan was formed, we set $500,000 aside dedicated to stormwater. We consider subsurface utilities. We always considered things, especially drainage. This is something we've been doing all along. In terms of soil conditions, how the road works, the conditions of the structures, he believed he was the best person to make those decisions about stormwater mitigation needs. Now, I'm not quite sure he's living up to what he said.
I also have a packet of information about all the correspondence that I've done over the years with pictures.
So
Would
what I would suggest is that we put this on the agenda in the very near future. Obviously, you know, this needs to be addressed quickly. So if we could put it on either our next agenda or the following, and if you could provide that packet of information, I think that would be very helpful. And if we could have Mr. Rodequins here to talk about potential mitigations for these issues. One question I do have, Ms. Wayland, is beyond, if you look at the street named Willow Circle and Alder Way, has there been more development in that area within the last 5 years that you're aware of? I'm just wondering if further out there's been development that's now bringing water into that wetland, which is causing it. So are you aware of any development upstream?
I think that those houses have been there for a while.
Okay, so you're not aware of any new development?
There's more wetlands around Alder Way, I know that.
Okay.
And that is high.
So
It's high ground. But
So I know one thing, I'm on a stormwater committee for Hickory Hills, and I know one thing that we did when we were experiencing a problem is looked at the watershed and look at the development, because although it may not be in close proximity to you, if, depending on the topography and the watershed that is going in that area, there may be development that's gone on, you know, several miles away that's impacting the flow to this particular wetland. So it's definitely something to look at.
But it's a pretty high point.
Well, it's coming from somewhere.
Yes,
And if
yes,
it's
it is.
relatively new. I mean, you know, I would look at.
Well, no, it's been going on since 2002.
Right. But prior to that,
Prior to that, yeah.
Right.
So I would actually suggest before we start doing it, that the town manager, we charge the town manager with doing some investigation, because I think we need to look at the planning board's records for what was approved for the subdivision, their drainage calculations, the other information like that. So I'm not prepared to discuss this at our next meeting. I think that more work needs to be done, that you've provided a lot of good information. I think providing that additional historical information to the town manager is going to help us get a proper way so that we can address this issues, because I don't think the applicant should be checking out the wetlands. I think the town...
no, I don't either, and I did not mean to suggest. It was just, I did not...
make sure she wasn't going to go with...
Yeah, no, I did not mean to suggest that, but I also think that time is of the essence, and I think that Phyllis's point is that we are road commissioners, and I think that this is compromising the roadway, so I don't want it to go 3 months before we talk about this again. So I think time is of the essence.
Get all the information together so we don't keep asking questions. We get the information ahead of time.
I mean, the object was, I thought, to bring people from different committees together.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for your persistence.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Is there any other public comment? Please.
Greg Bittner, 129 Pleasant Street. I'm also the chair of planning. We haven't put out our agenda for our next meeting on the 9th, so if you have any information that you can provide to Adam, I can add it to our agenda, and that way we can discuss it there as well.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Oh, there's one for each of them.
Yeah.
Any others? Okay, thank you. Our first appointment this evening is a liquor license violation hearing for MIJ Inc., doing business as J&M Sports Bar. Let me tell you what we're going to do here. Is a representative of MIJ here this evening? Please come forward, and a representative of the town. Okay. This is an official hearing. Everyone testifying must be sworn in. We will hear the town present its testimony. We'll hear the license holder present, or a representative of the license holder. The board will ask questions and deliberate. The board will then make a finding, and based on that finding, we'll determine what the next steps will be. I assume both of you plan on testifying this evening. Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Sergeant Hebert.
Jack Hebert, the Lunenburg Police Department. This violation was on February 21st, 2018, approximately 1:04 in the morning. That was a Tuesday night into Wednesday, and the U.S. Hockey Olympic game ended about a half hour before this incident, just a matter of record. I was on patrol that night in my cruiser, and I pulled into the J&M Sports Bar parking lot, and this is a picture kind of the angle I was at. I was more towards the back. You can see there's a gentleman kind of hanging out of a car right there. Originally, he looked like he might have just been leaning over to maybe get something from the center console or find something under the seat. So I went by and I ran the license plate. When we run the license plates in the cruiser, we actually get a picture of the registered owner. I went by the side of J&M Sports Bar and I saw the registered owner, kind of a shorter male, real bushy hair, very distinct, going in the side door after closing time. I continued around the building for the Fitchburg Shopping Plaza and came back to the Jeep, and this is a close-up of what I saw. This gentleman was actually passed out in the front seat of that vehicle. I was able to wake him and determine his name was David. That's all he could tell me. He couldn't tell me anything else. I was also able to determine that this, in fact, was not his vehicle. I don't think you can see it in that first picture. He was actually driving a blue Jeep Wrangler, and he was in a silver Jeep Cherokee. Two very distinctly different vehicles and colors.
Did you just get in the wrong car?
Apparently, this vehicle was unlocked, and he got into the wrong car. His car was parked probably 60, 70 feet away in a different section of the parking lot. He was taken into protective custody. He subsequently blew a .238 at the station about 45 minutes after this incident. Before I went back to the station, I went and talked to the bartender who was on duty that night, was Lisa Boyven. She did admit that this gentleman was in there. However, how much he had consumed, how long he was in there, I was getting different answers. Anywhere from he left 2 hours ago to he left an hour ago to I don't know how much he was served to he was served one drink. I realized how intoxicated he was, and I took it away before he finished it. I told her that if he showed up in that condition, she should have called us and not served him at all. That's the first violation. The second violation would be the fact that, again, people were in there after the 1 o'clock closing. I think you pointed out last time that the license actually says 12:45. Mm-hmm. I always thought it was 1 and 2, so that's just what I go by. Apparently, they're getting an extra 15 minutes to close up. So again, this was at about 1:04. Again, the registered owner of this Jeep was observed to enter that back side door with another female. She was not identified, and that was after the 1 o'clock closing when I first pulled into the parking lot. Additionally, there was another male inside the bar after closing who was identified as Lisa Boyven's boyfriend, who was also a DJ that night. And I understand if they are a DJ, they're technically an employee for the night. However, I specifically asked him if he had anything else to clean up inside. He told me that he was done. He was just waiting for her to close up, which, again, I assume would be a violation if he's no longer employed there and all his stuff is out. We discussed some other stuff as far as maybe locking that back door. It's a crash door, so people would be able to get out. And I think last time, too, he said they can't lock the doors, but they can certainly lock doors so people can't get back in. So if somebody goes out to have a cigarette at 12:30, they have to come back in the front door so they can kind of monitor who's in there and who's already out of there. That seems to be one of the problems, not monitoring who's there and who's not. So those are basically the two violations would be people in there after closing. Again, the registered owner of this Jeep and his girlfriend, and then the DJ for the night, and then for over-serving this gentleman that blew a .238.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Tebow?
I talked to my bartender, and she did shut him up. Excuse me, she did shut him off. And when she realized that he was intoxicated, he had been gone for some time. Where he went after he was shut off, we have no control of. At that point, we can't be inside and outside at the same time. He had been gone at least an hour, if not longer, from there. As far as the patrons coming back in the bar, is because somebody was in their vehicle and were waiting to get help from an officer because somebody was in their vehicle. They weren't coming back in to drink or anything like that. The DJ, who is still an employee at that time, still has up to an hour to be outside of the building. So he's not a patron at that time. He was not drinking. He was, working that evening. I just feel like he is nitpicking everything with me right now. We get mixed things. We're supposed to lock the door. We can't lock the door. Last time he told me not to lock the door. Now he wants me to lock the door. Is it or isn't it? There's mixed. I don't know. It's just a little overwhelming at this point. That's all we're trying to do is just run the business.
Please.
What is your policy when someone is in your bar and is obviously intoxicated?
If they're obviously intoxicated, they get shut off.
But you allow them to leave obviously intoxicated?
No, they're not allowed to. If they need a ride home, we'll give them a ride home.
But it sounds like you just said, listen, we shut him off and we can't monitor where he goes. Is that your procedure?
No, obviously we don't encourage people to drive home intoxicated.
But it sounds like you let this person who is obviously intoxicated leave. And I'm asking, is that your usual habit? Is that what happens at your establishment?
No, we will do everything possible to make sure that everybody gets home safely.
So what did you do to make sure this person got home safely?
Personally, I was not in there. I talked to my bartender. She did what she was supposed to do by not letting him drink. By taking his drink away.
How long had he been in the bar prior to being shut off?
Not long at all. He had come in, she had, seen, he had asked for a drink. She gave it to him, realized that he was intoxicated, took the beer away from him.
Is she present this evening?
She's actually working right now.
Okay, well, as Mr. Officer Hebert said, there were varying stories from the bartender, according to Officer Hebert, that she did serve him. He had been there a while. He hadn't been. He had just come in. I don't know what happened. And without the individual, as you said, you were not there. This is a very serious incident. To have someone in the parking lot with a .238 is absolutely unacceptable.
I understand that he had also, at least for over an hour, had not been in our building.
Well, we're lucky.
We're lucky he's still alive.
He didn't drive off.
Well, he also could have walked right up the street to Don Lee's or Graffiti and been served up there and came back down.
But he was intoxicated when you let him leave the building. And I understand that's a violation.
I guess I want to understand that.
Everything's outlined in the letter that Ms. Thibodeau received as far as violations.
No, I mean for
what the procedure is.
What the procedure is if someone is intoxicated in the establishment, what is the responsibility of the establishment?
I would have to look into that. I don't have an answer.
Do you know?
Can you?
I don't know exactly what, that would be their, whatever their policy is. I can tell you that
What's the law?
Other places in town have called us, and we've either got them a ride home or found them a cab or called somebody to come get them. Normally, they don't just shut somebody off and let them walk out the door. Most of the other bars in town call us and say, hey, we just had to shut this guy off, and we go up and handle it in whichever way we feel is most responsible.
And they do not.
One thing I would draw your attention to is the establishment does not have current insurance policy.
Can you address that?
Does not have what?
Insurance. Liability insurance.
That I have no idea about. That is a surprise to me.
Well, it's in the letter that was sent to you. Yeah. In fact, apparently there's been several letters sent to you.
As well as, I believe, phone calls or messages. Actually, attempted phone calls, but no answer.
But in the letter that brought you here tonight, one of the charges was failure or refusal to furnish or disclose information required by the general laws relative to liquor liability and workers' compensation insurance. So you were at least aware that we were going to talk about it tonight.
No, it actually is a surprise to me.
Well, on 2/15, you were mailed first class by personnel in the selectman's office. You had been emailed on February 14th, and then it was mailed first class on February 15th.
The only thing I had seen that had come through to the bar was a request for an audit.
Okay, well, can you tell me what your email is?
LOLooneybar@gmail.com.
Okay, well, I'm looking at an email
Yep.
dated February 14th at 1:14 p.m. from the Selectman's Office, Elaine Peterson, stating you have not obtained your safety inspection certificate and failure to post it on the premises. Now, you don't have your safety certificate from the town, and additionally, you don't have insurance.
The safety certificate, the fire department had come down and took care of that when I renewed the license.
All right, well, the certified mail letter that was sent to you on March 12th to tell you about these violations, including the lack of insurance, was signed for by a Adrian Fratelli?
Frederelli.
Yeah, is that somebody in your employ?
Yep, it's the daytime bartender.
Okay.
And the letter that was sent on February 15th specifically says, and it's to J&M Sports Bar, 5 Summer Street, Unit Number 10, this notice is to inform you that the workers' compensation coverage on file with this office has expired. Please forward an updated certificate of liability showing the new term period immediately to keep your license in good standing. And then it talks about the failures and the potential fines. So you're saying you never received that? You never received the email,
no.
Nor
I never.
the letter?
Nope. That's
So-
the only thing that I ever received was that I have ever read was the audit, and I just got that last week.
So going back to the earlier question that we had as far as our Lunenburg License Commission regulations, 1.03, admission to premises. Licensees shall refuse entrance to the premises to a person who appears intoxicated or unruly and shall evict such person, except that in such case the licensee should call the police and should offer assistance to an intoxicated person when possible. 1.03, admission of the premises. K, licensees shall not allow any patron or guest or employee who is not working that shift to enter the premises after the closing hour posted on the license or prior to the opening hour posted on the license. And then hours of operation, stated on the face of the license. Violation of other revocation, suspension, modification, violation of any other provision, including the failure or refusal of a licensee to furnish or disclose any information required by the provision of general laws or the rule or regulation of the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission or any regulation of the licensing authority, and to wit, failure to provide proof of liquor liability and workers' compensation insurance coverage to pay the fee, and to pay the fee and obtain the safety inspection certificate. These are all in the letter that was sent to you, certified mail.
And who signed for that letter?
Adrian Fraticelli, who is she stated, the bartender at the place. So all of those were in the notice that was sent out on March 12th.
And I want to go back for 1 minute to the insurance. This is apparently an ongoing issue. In March of 2017, the only way that the Selectman's Office received a copy of the liability insurance and liquor liability insurance was by contacting your insurance agent. The letter actually says, this office has made several attempts over the past 6 weeks to contact you to request updated certificates of insurance for your licensed business. Only by contacting the insurance agent directly did we receive the updated certificates. It is not the responsibility of the local licensing authority to have to chase down these required documents on your behalf. So that was a year ago. And it happened again this year.
And when I renew the licenses, I have to bring in a proof of insurance, which I do
and it was expired. So this is...
No, it was not expired.
Well, let me go back to the email.
The question is...
At the renew of
Expired
the...
2/11, all right.
So it's after the license was
After the
renewed.
with the renewal of the
It
license.
expired after the renewal of the license.
But with the renewal of the license, I had proof of insurance.
Right, after many attempts to chase you down until 2017 to get that, you provided it when
No,
you
I
renewed,
have
but-
to prove that
but-
when I go for the
But
renewal of the
what
license.
we're saying to you, ma'am, is that after you obtained your license, you obtained your license with a valid certificate. Subsequent to that, your certificate expired. It is your responsibility as an establishment, a liquor establishment, to make sure you have current coverage. You don't.
It's not just on license renewal, it's every day of the year.
Yeah. As of February 15th, your insurance has expired. According to this correspondence, it has expired, so you do not currently have insurance unless you have, if you have renewed it and you haven't provided a copy after many attempts to try to obtain a copy for the Selectmen's office. So did you contact the building department? Have you picked up your safety certificate from the building department?
When I dropped off the information, that's through the fire department, correct?
No, it's through the building department. Your safety certificate from the building department.
No. Whatever had been done, it was supposed to be done before anything that had been done before the renewal of the license.
This is
They had
after
come down
that.
to-
This is after that. This is in February of 2018.
Well, then, no, I don't know.
This was a month ago. Actually, more than that. And on December 27th, 2017, you were informed to pick up your safety inspection. February 15th, your insurance had expired. And as of February 14th of 2018, you had not picked up your safety insurance certificate, inspection certificate. So what you're saying is the two individuals that were in the bar, they came in because the gentleman that was intoxicated was in their vehicle. That's why they came back
That's
into
when
the bar?
they came back in.
When did they leave the bar? Do you know?
At closing, well, you had stated it was 1:04 in the morning, so.
Okay, but you were
Everybody
here,
was,
but your license says 12:45.
she had made sure that everybody was out at closing.
Okay,
And
so
when they-
for 20 minutes, they looked at their Jeep before they came back in?
What they were doing outside,
The requirements say the licensee shall not allow any patron or guest or employee who is not working to enter the premises after the closing hour. And doesn't give excuses for why people are coming back in.
On January 10th, when was your hearing? On March 6th, you were here for the violation that occurred on January 10th, and at that time, we discussed in depth that your license was till 12:45.
right.
So did the individuals who came in subsequent to finding someone in their vehicle exit the bar at 12:45? Were they out of the bar by 12:45 a.m.?
She's made sure that everybody is outside the bar, because he is very precise about driving through.
Paul, if I can real quick. This gentleman was on the side of the building with his girlfriend, where people typically smoke. There's a
Okay,
big-
so he could have been outside for 20 minutes.
There's a big exterior cooler right there. He can't see his vehicle from where he was. He didn't know somebody was in his vehicle till he approached me, and I asked if that was his vehicle and asked him to go through it to make sure nothing was taken. So he was on the side of the building.
So he wasn't in the building?
He wasn't in the building, he wasn't in the front. He didn't know somebody was in his vehicle till well after 1, till I had the gentleman in handcuffs in the back of my cruiser.
Okay.
That's when he knew somebody was in his vehicle, so he did not re-enter the bar because someone was in the vehicle and asking them to call us.
He was also not in the bar. He was outside the bar when you seen him.
All right, I'm confused now, because I thought you said that they were in the bar. Now, are you saying they were outside the bar?
So when I pulled in, I saw the gentleman hanging out of the car. I ran the plate, I went to the side of the bar where that cooler is with the side entrance. That's when I saw the picture, the registered owner go back into the bar.
Okay, so he went back into the
Back into the
bar.
bar at approximately 1:04.
And didn't talk to you till after he...
Didn't talk to me
Okay, so
until
he was not in the bar.
Right,
Okay.
he was outside the bar, went into the bar at 1:04 with his girlfriend, I believe the bar back, and then they came out the front door when I was already at his vehicle.
And then he talked to you about
That's
someone
when-
being in his vehicle.
That
He
is-
didn't even know
He
someone
didn't
was in
even
his
know
vehicle.
until, he
But
didn't
he
even-
also wasn't in the bar.
Well, he was
He
in the bar.
walked
When
into
he
the
walked
bar,
into the bar, but he wasn't in the bar. He potentially could have left at 12:45.
but he
then-
went back in, which is a
Right,
violation.
I understand that.
Okay.
I understand that, but I'm
Trying
just
to get the
saying,
sequence.
I'm just saying that,
We don't
if
know,
he-
we don't
we
know
don't-
when he left the bar. We
Right,
just know that he
right.
went back into the bar.
Okay.
I don't have any more questions.
I just want to understand and make sure that I'm clear. So as far as we're aware, there is not a valid insurance certificate, nor has the safety inspection been picked up,
It has not. and
It
nor
has
it been
not.
paid for.
nor has it been paid for.
Correct.
Is it legal for them to operate the bar without those things?
No, it's a violation.
No.
It's a
No, it's a
violation of our
violation.
regulation. Assuming we make that a finding, that would be a violation. That falls under other causes for
Well-
revocation or suspension, which is anything, regulations of the alcoholic beverage control and the requirements, failure or refusal of the licensee to furnish information, and that's failure to provide proof of liquor liability and workers' compensation coverage and to pay the fee.
Yeah, it's mandatory under state law, under the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission, that they have liquor liability insurance coverage.
And then we require as part of our rules that they comply with the alcohol ABCC rules.
Are there any other questions for license holder or Sergeant Hebert?
No questions. I just want to comment that I think it's extremely unfortunate that the bartender is not here to answer specific questions, because I'm extremely concerned about the level of intoxication of the patron that was in the parking lot. And not knowing what the sequence of events was, because as you yourself stated, you were not there, leaves way too many unanswered questions for me.
Okay, I'll consider the hearing closed. Is there any motion relative to a violation?
I believe we have violations. I'm struggling with the first one, admission to premises, as far as a person who appears intoxicated. Based on testimony, apparently that person was in there, but we don't have enough information on, I don't feel I have enough information to make a motion on that part, but I would make a motion that we find a violation separately of the admission to premises that shall not allow any patron, or guest, or employee who's not working the shift to enter the premises. A violation for hours of operation after 12:45. Other causes of, and the third one, other causes of revocation, suspension, that failure to follow the ABCC requirements and our regulations, failure to provide proof of liquor liability, workers' compensation insurance, to pay the fee and obtain the safety inspection certificate.
So that's, just to be clear, that's three, you're motioning three violations?
That's correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can I just be clear, the three violations that you're citing is 103, 104, and 113,
103K,
okay?
104A, and 1.13.
Okay. I'm struggling with the admission to the premises. I understand, and I'm also struggling with hours of operation, because according to the officer, the individuals were outside of the bar when he pulled into he saw him entering the bar. So it sounds to me that there was no one in the bar other than the DJ. And I would argue that he had been working that night. Yes, he didn't have the equipment, but I'm struggling with that one. I'm really, and if someone was in my vehicle, my first instinct would be to go back in and say, hey, I need some help. So I'm struggling with the admission to the premises and the hours of operations. I have no problem with the 1.13A1 and 1.134, but I'm struggling with the first two.
Well, the officer said the couple did not know there was someone in their vehicle until they approached, till Officer Hebert told them.
Can I just ask you again?
Yeah.
Can you go over that again?
When I pulled in the lot, the gentleman was in and out of the car.
Yeah.
I ran the license plate. On my computer, I get a picture of the registered owner. When I went to the side of the building, the registered owner was outside the bar, by that side door. There's a big, huge cooler right there. You can't see the front of the building or Summer Street from behind that.
So he didn't see his
I
car?
didn't see his car. He then went back into the bar with his girlfriend, and I believe it was the bar back, Mr. Parker. Then he came out the front door and approached me, or approached his car, when I asked him if that was his car and if he knew the person was in it. And he said that he didn't. I asked him.
Okay, so he didn't go back into the bar because someone was in his car. He went back into the bar, okay. All right, then I'm not struggling with that one. I'm no longer struggling.
Good.
Is there any other discussion? So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so we have at least 3 violations. Is there a motion relative to penalty, or is there a discussion relative to penalty?
This is tough because we currently have a suspension that's supposed to take place. This is the third violation.
Yeah.
We have a 7-day suspension that we've already voted on.
And third offense can be anywhere from a warning to revocation of the license.
Has our decision for the suspension been appealed to the ABCC?
It has been sent, but nothing appealed that we've received.
It would seem that we couldn't ask for less than what we.
And I would say it needs to be more.
Right.
Because this is a serious situation.
Should it be consecutive with the other one or later?
We have to
give it time for the appeal.
Okay. So when's the earliest it could be?
30 days.
30 days from now? So the one that we have currently is a 7-day suspension?
Mhm.
Would it at least double that?
At this rate, first one was 3, then it was 7, and we double it, 14.
I think what bothers me is the lack of management at this establishment. I mean, we don't know what mail gets received. We have people signing for mail that we don't act upon. We refuse somebody a drink and let them go out in the parking lot and don't really care where they go next. I'm not sure this person's entitled to a license. Now, I'm willing to do the one last chance, but I have a problem here.
Right, right.
Unfortunately, I can't disagree with you.
We're very lucky.
We want small businesses to succeed. We want you to succeed. But looking at the history, there's just failure to communicate, failure to keep your licenses up to date, and it's persistent. It's not a one-off. And you were here, you were just here, and to have this happen so close on the heels of a 7-day suspension ordered by this board is truly troubling. And as much as, I don't know, do we do a last chance or do we revoke the license?
We're all very fortunate that person wasn't able to get in the car and drive, that's for sure.
Absolutely. To hurt himself or someone else.
The sentencing guidelines are only a guide. The licensing authority may use its discretion in determining whether the facts surrounding a violation warrant a penalty which is more lenient or severe than that suggested by the guidelines. The sentencing guidelines shall not be construed as so as to limit the licensing authority to consider alternative dispositions or further conditions on a license or even alternate penalties. For instance, rolling back of the operating hours. So
There's
some
an
of
idea,
the
is
further,
rolling back the hours.
the other following conditions is that I don't know if we can have a contingent, one of the requirements is that the licenses and all the insurances have to be obtained immediately.
Well, I think that they can't open without those insurances. I think that's within our purview right now, is they don't have a liability insurance required by the ABCC as well as by our regulations. So therefore, I think outside of a suspension, they cannot legally operate as of right now.
Right.
So and that's not a suspension. That's the law. So I think that immediately the establishment needs to be closed until the insurance certificates are furnished. And then as to what decision is made tonight, then that can take place. But I think it's important that immediately the establishment be closed until the insurance is provided. That's the ABCC regulations. We're the licensing commission. We cannot allow an establishment to run without the necessary insurance.
I would agree.
I think tonight, I mean, it needs to be closed.
I would agree.
I agree with that.
I would make a motion that we issue a 14-day suspension starting May 6th, Sunday, May 6th.
Second.
Any discussion?
I guess we would probably like to also say that this is the last chance for this establishment.
I'd almost like the condition, I agree with Mrs. Bertram that we have to address the insurance issue right now, but I wonder if we could put a condition on at this point that says when the renewal comes around, we have to have proof ahead of time. So it's like a prepaid for a year so that we don't renew it unless it's in effect each time.
I don't know if we can do that. I don't know
I
if the
think
insurance can do that.
I mean, unless you get a policy that starts January 1st, I mean, we could ask for that. We could ask for them to get to their insurance company instead of having it expire February 15th, that they issue a certificate, the insurance policy that will start December 31st and go till December 31st. That would be the way that we would require that as part of the license.
That seems to make sense in this case.
That almost makes sense. Anytime, when someone comes in for a new one, that's kind of what I think we should require.
For everybody, that it expires at the end of the year.
Our rules and regs to maybe require that for everybody, so that's not an issue.
But in the case of lax management here, I'd like to make that a condition on this particular case if we're allowed to.
Sure.
I agree. So you're going to amend
I would
it?
amend my motion to require the certificate, as Jamie just talked about.
And I would amend my second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I want to be clear that the establishment needs to be closed. I don't know how we go about that, whether that's something the police department does or how that occurs. But until we get the insurance, they can't be open.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right. A lot of licensing issues are 710 appointment is with Victory Distributors LLC doing business as Hannaford Supermarket and Pharmacy for a change of beneficial interest. Is there someone here from Hannaford's? Sir.
Jason Ahern, Assistant Store Manager, Hannaford Supermarket, 333 Mass Ave.
Glad to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Okay, and we're going to change the ownership. Let me just pull out the paperwork on this.
Change of officers. Is that ownership or officers?
Yeah, it's probably not ownership, okay. Okay, I remember going through this, all right. Are there any questions or comments? Is this just a normal?
Just a normal, we change of officers last year. They have to renew the license. They just adjusted as to who the officers are of the company. Happens every couple of years, it seems like.
I just have one question.
Sure thing.
I was in the store and I was using the kind of auto,
Self-check? Yep.
and I bought a bottle of wine and it didn't flag it. I didn't have to show it then.
I actually asked. That happened to me, and I actually asked because I went over to the customer service area, which is also a checkout, and I said, how do you know that I just purchased this alcohol and that I'm of, you know, and she said, it signals me, and it does say assistance needed, and she said, and then I can go over, if I can see you, I will okay it.
Yep, it's age verified on a handheld.
Right,
on a
and
handheld unit.
so they can okay it from the customer service station. So subsequent to that, I actually had I got flagged again, and somebody came over and said, you know, okay, you're okay, and put it through. So I had the same concern, and I actually stopped and didn't go out the store and went back and said, okay, how are you doing this? And so she said, I was gonna walk over, but when you turned around, I knew you were of age, and I passed it.
So they knew you were over 40.
They knew, yeah.
As we've talked before, with other liquor license violations, you're supposed to card unless they look
It does come
40.
up on a handheld unit that all our service leaders carry around, and they visibly see who the person is purchasing the alcohol and check ID if need be.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I would make a motion that we approve the change of officers for Hannaford's as requested.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you much.
Sir.
Thank you.
And the next one is for Donald E. Wyans, doing business as Settlers Pub, which is a change of alcohol license class from seasonal to annual, and a change of the corporate name to Settlers Crossing Enterprises, LLC.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Donnie Lyons. I'm a pot owner out there. I'm a PGA golf professional, and twofold, we'd like to change my name off the liquor license to the entity. We just bought a second golf course, and our lawyer and our business believes it's better to have it in the business rather than a personal name, help with taxes at the end of the year and so forth. So it's basically kind of a paper cleaning up. Secondly, we would like to apply for a full year liquor license. We do have the availability now and then to get small little bridal showers, birthday parties for families and stuff in the winter, and presently we can't do that. I mean, we have a small building. We can only seat about 36 to 40 people, so we don't really look for those parties in the summer because it would interfere with our golf business. But again, because businesses got better through the community supporting us, and I think us being a good partner to the community and, you know, donating to a lot of the local charities, that we have had those calls. And secondly, I've been a golf pro for, I hate to say how long, 35, 40 years. And I mean, 2 years we were lucky enough to open in March because the weather was good. Basically a seasonal license, and I'm a town employee in Linfield running 2 courses, and my name's on as a manager. They usually start April 1st. So you're really not legally supposed to sell beer if you open on March 10th or whatever. So again, it would just help our business if we had a year-round license. It's not that we're going to be there on an everyday basis running a 7-day-a-week bar, but we could answer the call, again, for small parties. And if we were lucky enough to have the golf season extend later in the year or start earlier, we would certainly appreciate it.
Any questions?
We'd make a motion that we convert the license from seasonal to annual and to change the licensing name to Settlers Crossing Enterprises Incorporated.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
2 positive things, guys. The Masters is this week, and the Red Sox are opening on Thursday, so hopefully the weather's getting better. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a weekday entertainment license for Dragonfly Garden Cafe at 3 Lancaster Avenue. Hi.
Good evening, how are you?
Good.
Jocelyn Schneider, 3 Lancaster Avenue, Dragonfly. Hi. Garden Cafe, we're located in the center of town. we're a coffee shop. We serve soups and sandwiches. Some of you have probably come in to visit. We're looking for a weekday entertainment license to support our monthly open mic on Fridays, the first Friday of every month. We'd like to host a community to play music, and it's volunteer. You can come in, and all ages welcome. We've had 8-year-olds interested in doing so, and distinguished guitar players and people, coffee house music and just very, acoustic style music. But now we're getting interest for people who want to have a trio or a little bit more larger groups, and people who want to collaborate and play music together. So we'd like to be able to do that.
Couple of questions, since we've had other weekday licenses. Will this be inside the building?
Yes.
Okay, and what are your hours of operation?
Currently, we're offering counter service Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays from 7:30 to 3:30, and we've actually started doing light catering to offices and gyms, believe it or not, in the area that want fresher options, more healthier options delivered to their office and their gym. So we've entertained that Monday through Thursday. So we're now open Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, 7:30 to 3:30.
So the music will only be during those hours?
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. And ideally, the first Friday of every month. It's actually part of a concept that our group is entertaining and working closely with the Agricultural Commission, hopefully, and the farms and craft makers in the area. We want to do First Friday farm share. Pick up at our location, so between the hours of 3 and 6 before open mic begins, which we'd like to host from 6 to 9.
Okay,
PM.
so open mic would be 6 to 9?
Yes, yes.
So that's when the music would be, 6 to 9 on Fridays?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just once a month, the first Friday.
Okay.
And we've had artists on Saturdays and craft makers on
Yeah, so don't limit
Saturdays.
yourself to Friday, so I would think...
Right, I mean, obviously, if we have interest, we would love to have the community playing music and being
I
artistic.
think it's a special license
I was just going to say, is Saturday, can Saturday
yeah.
be covered? It's just Sunday that's a special license?
Sunday is a special license.
Okay,
yes.
so you don't plan to have music on Sunday?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay.
I would make a motion that we approve the weekday license hours not to exceed 9:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday.
Second?
Any discussion?
The only reason I'm doing that is just to make sure we have outside limits on it, just so we don't have somebody saying you're playing late into the night.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, we've had a ukulele player. She's kind of wild. She's 8. Requests to play. She's
from Shirley, though.
Yeah. She'll get home early.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with that. Good luck.
Does this need to change with my terms of the time?
Is it on the agenda?
Okay, yeah.
As the next item has to do with the Cable Advisory Committee, and my significant other is an employee who works for the Lunenburg Public Access, I'm going to exclude myself from this discussion and ask Mr. Ebersol to lead it.
And we ask the Cable Advisory Committee to come before us, or whoever's here from the committee.
And I will just say that I am a member of the Cable Advisory Committee, and that we are posted, that we have a forum.
Actually, we didn't post.
We
so-
didn't post?
No.
Oh,
I didn't
I
get,
thought
but
we
we're
were
not
gonna
discussing
post.
anyway.
So just as long as you don't deliberate.
Tom Alonso, 284 Lancaster Avenue, Chair of the Cable Advisory Committee. At long last, after I think 2.5 years of negotiating with Comcast, we have come to an agreement with the contract, the highlights of which I will provide right now. That's the new contract, which will be another 10-year contract, will provide a capital amount of $170,000, 50% paid in year 1, 25% paid in year 2, and the remaining 25% in the 3rd year. The subscriber fees, which help fund the PAC operation, will go from 2.5% to 5%. There will be a construction of a fiber video return line to the middle high school, so not only will we have a feed from here at the studio here, we will have a feed directly from a location to be determined with the IT director, Steve Malandrinos, about where we'll put that in the new school. And we will convert what's currently a Leominster channel to the third Lunenburg channel within 2 years. So right now we have a government channel and a public access channel. The only thing we don't have is an education channel. So within 2 years we will have the education channel, and we will be able to provide programming to that. There are 2 side letters. Side letters, of course, are not part of the contract, but they are issues that can be revisited as needed. One of them is the ability of us to go to high definition, and that will be revisited sometime after 2 years. There's no commitment and there's no guarantee that we will get that, but we have made it clear that if and when it becomes available to towns, that we want to be able to jump on that. All of our equipment that we've been purchasing for the broadcast, including this one, is high definition, so we'll be prepared for that. And the second side letter is, well, actually there's 3. That one about HD also talks about the electronic program guide, which we have asked about, which they have constantly said is a technical obstacle that's not easy to overcome, putting electronic program guides, because their program territories cover more than just Lunenburg. It's hard for them to, the way the system is currently set up, hard for them to provide electronic program guides for Lunenburg in their area that includes towns other than Lunenburg. But if in case that becomes available, we'll be discussing that with them. And then a senior discount for seniors who are subscribers.
Definition of seniors?
I don't know exactly. It's over 55 or 60.
Okay.
And again, it's a side letter. It's not in the contract. At our last meeting on March 26th, which was last Monday, we voted unanimously to recommend this contract be signed by the Board of Selectmen, who have the authority to sign it. And I will take any questions anybody has about.
If you go to high definition, will there be additional cost?
Well, since it's not negotiated, it's hard to know, but my instinct would say no.
But it would be discussed at that time if and when it became available.
Right.
What about the electronic program guides? Is there a cost to that?
Well, again, it's not even available, so the definitive answer is I don't know, because Comcast doesn't know. But in all likelihood, if they implement the technology that allows it, that it would be probably covered under the contract.
And if it wasn't covered, they'd have to come back to renegotiate the contract.
To renegotiate, yes.
Right.
So 170,000, is that all that Lunenburg residents are paying over the next 10 years?
No.
No, they pay the franchise fee.
They pay the
too.
franchise fee.
So how much does it cost Lunenburg
It
citizens?
depends on what package they buy.
Yeah, but basically, the basic package.
In average, it will be a change of about $2.80 a month per subscriber.
Over the 10-year period, and that's not to go up over the 10-year period.
No. I mean, it's a percentage of the franchise fee. So if their programming goes up, it's the part that is allocated for the, that percentage is of the revenue collected by Lunenburg subscribers.
So 5% of our bill another 5% gets tacked on. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't get tacked on. It gets whatever you're paying as a bill. 5% of that comes back to
Rather
the town
than
for the program.
2.5%, 5% will now come to Lunenburg versus the 2.5% that currently comes to Lunenburg.
Yeah, and I'm really opposed to it because I just think that's doubling that is inappropriate.
Well, compared to the $100 you're already paying or more, that's $100 for the pretty basic package I have. Another $2 is nothing for what the town gets out of it.
That's what everyone says. Oh, we've got to increase taxes 2.5%. We can't do it 2%. We've got to, I don't pay $100. I pay less than that. But I just think it's, let's put a debt exclusion, let's put another debt exclusion, let's pay for Comcast. It's just one thing after another, after another. And I don't think you should have negotiated to double the rates. I just think that's inappropriate.
I think that we did our due diligence. I think that we did surveys.
Now, when you did the surveys, did you explain clearly that the participants were going to pay the cost?
Have you looked at the survey?
I don't remember. It was past
Well,
seeing the survey.
it was
But
very-
my question is, did you say the fee's going to double?
We asked
You are
what people would be willing, if they would be willing to pay a higher rate for these services, and the answer was yes.
It's been, the funding has been, and the mechanism, first of all, is by state law, how it gets funded. And yes, all of that was upfront from every meeting
And
that
the
we
public
discussed
hearing,
this at,
the
and
public
the public hearing. And the people have expected, again, meetings like this, meeting of all the other government boards, town events, and people have really grown to not only like them, but depend on them for a lot of information of what goes on in the town. And that's what we heard clearly from people who did get in contact with us. I mean, obviously, surveys don't have big responses, as I'm sure this board knows. But of the people who got in touch with us, that's what they wanted. And a lot of people wanted the third channel too. So that, and a lot of this comes because of the third channel. Because after the third channel, every time, so the previous two contracts, we started with one channel. So when I just moved into town, we had one channel. And then the next, the 2008 license added the second channel, which was the public access channel, because the first one was just government. And then this one rounds it out, and so some of this includes the gearing up for a third channel. On the next, after 10 years, well, first of all, who knows where cable will be in 10 years, but from that point, we'll have all the channels, and so it's just a matter of maintaining, whereas right at this point, we're still building.
Thank you.
The chair will entertain a license to approve the proposed contract.
Can I make the motion if
You
I was
can.
on the committee? I would make a motion to approve the proposed contract.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, and one abstention?
Yes.
So you have the record of as we discovered in reviewing the charter, that when you have a not unanimous vote, which is a double negative, you have to record who's voting in favor and opposed and abstained.
Right, thank you. I'm assuming that the notifications that the committee members got to be reinstated to the cable advisory by Ms. Peterson is probably, we don't have to fill out, I'm
Well,
assuming.
until it's signed off,
All right,
it's
well, I'll
not
hold
over.
off on supply.
We don't ever want to lose a volunteer.
Thanks.
Thank you for the work.
You trade it for a different committee if you know.
Yeah.
No, Mr. Alonso, have you supplied the paperwork that's necessary for the board to sign?
The latest contract is the only paperwork.
Okay, so
and we have
do
the
you have
minutes.
that?
The minutes were filed that showed our vote, and the town manager should have, because she was in correspondence with Attorney Ewing.
Okay, so if you don't have it tonight.
Yeah, if you don't
perhaps
have
you
it,
could
let me
for the
know and
next-
I'll email it to you.
Last version I have is from 3 weeks ago, March
That
15th.
would probably be it, yeah. We can touch base, I'll touch base with you in the morning, and we'll make sure. Yep.
Thank you very much. And I'll give up my temporary chair to the chair.
Thank you. Okay, now we have some interviews, appointments and reappointments and resignations. And the first is a joint meeting with the school committee to interview candidates for the vacant school committee seat and a joint appointment. And I guess we're seeing the entrance of the school committee.
If you,
And- Yeah. Madam Chair, do you have a quorum?
We have a quorum.
And have you called your,
No, we haven't called my meeting yet.
If-
So what time is it? 8:17, and I'm gonna call my meeting to order.
okay, fine, thank you, welcome. What we're here to do is to fill a vacant seat on the school board. The school board is an elected position, and by policy, vacancies on an elected position require a majority of a combined vote of the board with the vacancy and the Board of Selectmen. So I believe we have one candidate?
One candidate.
Okay, and is that candidate with us this evening?
She's here, Miss Archibald.
Hi, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
How would you like to come up here?
Sure thing.
And perhaps you could tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. I'm Carol Ashambo, and I've lived in Lunenburg for 29 years, and I'm a retired school teacher. I taught at Neshoba Regional School District for 35 years. I served as a regular education teacher. I served as part of the teaching and learning program there. I was in charge of the mentoring program. I filled many leadership positions while I was there. My two children went through Lunenburg Public Schools and are now well graduated, college graduated, all settled, off on their merry way. And I think it's important that when there's a vacancy or opportunity to serve the town and you have the background and the talents required, that you step up and do so. So that is why I put my name in the hat.
Terrific. Do you have any questions for Ms. Ashland?
I do not.
No, you guys don't have any questions?
Do you?
Okay. So my question for you is, after serving this 1 year, would you be willing to run next May when we have the position open?
I think that if everything went, fine, and I found I could juggle it fine, and yeah, I think part of the reason for stepping up for an interim position is to try it on. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I would probably be interested.
Okay, and how many hours do you think it is on a monthly basis that you'll be volunteering?
Oh, lots,
Okay.
I would think.
Make sure that just realistic.
I've done a lot of school council. I've spent a lot of time with school committees. I've done a lot in my teaching career as a union rep, as negotiating teams, as I've run the gamut. This is a lot of hours. I would think within a month's time, you would say.
Yeah.
Probably 60 hours or so. I think a fair amount of time. You have to do your homework.
Right.
And I think that's probably where the gist of the time comes in, to do your homework and figure out, what's going on. And you can't be on a committee and not serve on committees. And if you're going to be part of a committee in the committee, then you need to do that homework as well. So, yes, it's time consuming.
It is, yes.
I'm retired.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I just wondered what else you had juggling.
No,
Nothing?
couple of grandchildren.
Okay.
And
First of all, thank you for throwing your hat in the ring. And I do certainly appreciate that. From your perspective, having children who have grown out of the public school system in Lunenburg, and I know your husband was a teacher as well.
Sure.
Is there something that you see as a driving force other than giving back to your community that would have you participate in the school committee? Is there something a vision that you have?
I don't have an agenda or a driving passion to anything. I've spent a lot of time in teaching in a very high quality school district, and I know what that requires. I know that my kids received a good education here in Lunenburg, and that they did well in their college education and in their career choices. And, I can't say what I would think because I haven't done the homework. Mm-hmm. I haven't jumped in to look, So I don't have like an agenda about, well, I want to see more technology, I want to see this, I want to see that. I know technology is a hot topic. I know that in the new school building, you get lots of new toys and you need training and time to figure out what to do with them. I understand that, so I don't have the background knowledge to say what I think is a driving force.
So how do you think you would get that background knowledge? How would you take your first step if you were appointed?
I think what I would do first is what I've done over the last couple of days is I've gone back in school committee minutes. I've checked policies and things like that. I checked the vision statement and the mission statement just to make sure that I knew where everybody felt they were headed. That's the first spot you would go. And then as things come up, you would have to investigate. You would talk to parents, you could talk to teachers, you could talk to other committee members or, you know, people that are involved more than I am at this point, because although I have no children in the district, I have lots of friends who do. And I have people I can ask questions of. I know a lot of people, been here a while.
And as you looked at the vision statement and to see where we were heading as a community, did anything pop out in your mind as this is a really good idea, or this looks a little questionable?
I think to me, when I looked at the vision statement, what stuck out to me, and this was just as somebody who wasn't involved in any of it, and you know, is the whole idea of community partnership. And I think that's huge. I think that as in any community in Lunenburg, we need to all work together. The schools need to know they are part of the overall community. The overall community needs to know the school is a vital part of the community at large. So that's what popped at me when I read through the mission statement. And I believe that. I think, you know, that's something I was focused on when I had some training at one point in how to create consensus in committees and that kind of thing. And you need all the constituents. You need everybody playing together. And that's what popped out at me when I read it.
Thank you. One of the reasons I ran.
What do you think you will uniquely bring to this committee? What strengths and qualities, considering what the next 12 months looks like in school search? What over all your years in education, working with school committees, working with districts, working with town, school councils?
I think I have a very good understanding of how schools run. I think I have a very good understanding of what is necessary for an educational leader to lead a group. I understand about curriculum. I understand about state regulation. I've been in that up to my eyeballs. Part of the job that I did have was training teachers on how to be recertified. What is the state law on recertification? What do you have to do? What does everybody have to do? That was part of my job at Neshoba. So I think I know a lot about that kind of thing. So like on a superintendent search, I would be able to hear a candidate and I would hope I would be able to discern what I'm hearing. You know, are these just buzzwords or are there something underneath it? Because I've been on a lot of committees to select different people, not a superintendent, but principals and countless committees on selecting teachers. And I think I could be good at that. I think that I could help with that.
The only other question I have is, would you be able to get sworn in tomorrow?
I know.
Instead of
We-
here?
I
That was
the other question.
If
Thank
the
you
vote
for
goes this
asking
way.
that. Yes, I know. Could you get there tomorrow?
I-
The budget hearing is tomorrow.
I did look at that, and I did look at the budget hearing, and yes, I will be here tomorrow. I probably wouldn't be
One way or another.
a very good contributor, as I have not had time to do homework on it.
That's okay.
But I certainly would be here.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay. All right. Any
So
thoughts on anything?
I would like to make a comment on, thank you for your very insightful questions. That was very clearly thought out from each of you, whether they were planned or whether they came up during tonight's meeting. So, and a procedural question, this was the only applicant to this?
Yes.
Thank you. I would make a motion that we appoint Carol Archambault to the one-year term for the school committee till the next election.
And do I have to make a motion as well?
No,
No, you can second it.
I just need a second.
Second the motion.
There we go.
We have a second. All those in favor, and this is a combined vote?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
If you go to the town clerk's office tomorrow, you can get sworn in, and you
I
can
will
be...
go to the town clerk's office tomorrow.
Condition of your,
We got it.
okay.
Okay, thank you
So
very
I
much.
can adjourn my
Good luck
meeting,
at Damon's chair
right?
tomorrow.
I'm going to adjourn at 8:27. 8:27. Thank you.
All righty, thank you very much. Thank you.
We're good, right?
We also have an appointment for constable, appointment by the town manager.
No, this is an appointment by the board.
Okay, this is an appointment by the board, so it's for Constable John Godek. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
You tell us a little bit about yourself while I find your...
What may be of interest in this appointment is my previous job that I'm retired from. I was a K-9 officer with the state of Massachusetts. I handled both an attack dog and narcotics dog for quite a few years and was lucky enough to retire at a younger age.
And your reason for wanting to continue this line of work?
Good question. Really, there's a need for civil process that isn't handled by the local police departments, and nor do they care to do that. So through the court systems and through the attorneys that we represent as constables, they have a great need for our services, and we're the ones that provide it.
I would make a motion, we appoint John Godek as constable. Is there a term? A term ending?
Term for this?
Town constable.
The term, no, when does it
I'm
turn?
sorry.
I think it's June 30th. Is this one of the appointments we go to June 30th?
I don't know that it, I don't think does it expire?
Yeah, we do it, as part of the annual reappointments, we reappoint all the constables.
Doesn't appear to be in the package.
So are you currently a constable in Fitchburg?
Yes, I am.
And you'll continue with that?
I will. There are certain civil processes that allow us to go across city and town lines without being appointed in those particular towns or cities. But with the advantage of being a local person in the adjoining town of Fitchburg, I think it'd be a great service, which I've done, I think, for Lunenburg for maybe 10 years in the past.
So I'd make a motion that we appoint John as the constable with a term ending along with the other constables we have in place.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
And we have an appointment for animal inspector. Is that yours or ours?
It's my appointment that you ratify.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know.
This is animal inspector appointment by the town manager. Want to tell us about that one?
Yes. So this is Kathy Como is the appointment. And the term is on the agenda, May 1st, 2018 to April 30th, 2019. And this is a form that needs to be returned to the state.
And this is separate than animal control officer, it's the inspector.
Yeah, can you just talk about the animal inspector role? I know we have it, but the public doesn't.
So the animal inspector, I can read right from Mass General Law. They make regular and thorough inspections of all neat cattle, sheep, and swine found within the limits of their respective towns. And they do reports that are made to the state.
So I would make a motion to ratify the appointment of Kathleen Como to animal inspector with a term of May 1st, 2018 to April 30th of 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And we have a resignation. I'll read the resignation letter. To whom it may concern, please accept my resignation from the Lunenburg Agricultural Commission, effective immediately. Family obligations require my full attention at this time. Thank you for the opportunity to have served the town, and that's respectfully Maureen Dupuy. Can I have a motion to accept the resignation?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Which creates an opening on the Agricultural Commission, and anyone interested is encouraged to file a talent bank form, and we'll try to fill that post haste.
The vacancy actually has been advertised, and we have 2 applicants that will be on the April 17th agenda.
Okay, great. Look forward to that.
Is that a joint? Oh, that's not, no, that's a selectman appointment? Okay.
All righty. So that does it for our interviews, appointments, and resignations. Town manager report.
You're ahead of me. Okay. The District Local Technical Assistance from Montechusett Regional Planning Commission. We received formal notification from the Mass Department of Housing and Community Development. They gave their final approval for our request for District Local Technical Assistance from MRPC. The District Local Technical Assistance from the staff at MRPC will include expansion of the formation of the Business Town Partnership report to include how each recommendation is implemented, the responsible parties included in the implementation process, and the estimated time frame that each recommendation can reasonably be accomplished. It will also include preparation and distribution of a promotional tourism brochure that would promote the local businesses and be used on the town website to highlight Lunenburg's resources to visitors. The creation and distribution of this type of information will assist both our residents in locating local businesses and our local business owners. Currently, there is no central location where this information can be sought, and often residents use social media to solicit information on certain services. This tool would also be used to show the town's recreational resources, historic locations, and promote our natural resources. As referenced in MRPC's December 17th report, recreation, history, arts, and culture are also economic development activities that will draw visitors to Lunenburg, but they also foster a sense of community. The assistance will also include creation of a permitting guidebook to assist customers with projects of any type and scale or need to obtain any permit. The town is in the process of moving to electronic permitting to create greater efficiencies in the permitting process and ease of use by the applicant. A permitting guidebook will complement this process by outlining the requirements for applicants and also address how they can file their application online and view the status remotely as well. The land use director and I have a meeting with MRPC staff on Tuesday, April 10th to discuss next steps. The annual town meeting warrant and request for a ballot question on the annual town election, that is a agenda item for tonight's meeting. Due to the deadline to provide the finalized annual town meeting warrant booklet to the printer to mail to every household according to the town bylaws, there is insufficient time for a ballot question for a debt exclusion for the demolition of the old primary school to get on the annual town election warrant. The annual town election warrant is included in the booklet that is mailed out and is among the warrants to be signed by the board tonight. The alternative would be that the selectmen call a special election, and that deadline is September 15th. And that would be to include a ballot question to request exempt borrowing for the demolition of the old primary school. This vote would be a 2/3 vote of the entire board to place an exclusion question on the ballot. The contingent vote that is passed at annual town meeting has until the September 15th to be passed on as a referendum vote on the ballot, where the appropriation vote at town meeting is null and void. Economic development, we will be holding a mini workshop with the Agricultural Commission and the Planning Board at the April 10th meeting, and the whole second half of the meeting will be dedicated to a workshop format on this topic. And this will be discussion on economic development as it pertains to our agricultural resources and farms.
And they've been invited and are available?
Yes, a quorum of each board is available. They'll have posted meetings as well. Just an announcement about dental insurance for town employees. Last month, I requested our insurance broker to seek quotes on dental insurance for fiscal 2019. Our current provider, Altus Dental, responded with a significant reduction to the monthly premium and a rate that is guaranteed until June 30th, 2020. The current rates that we received a renewal for were initially $48.04 for the employee monthly rate, $96.08 for the employee plus one, and $168.17 for a family plan. The new rates, which go in effect retroactively on March 1st, will be $38.24 for an employee plan, $76.48 for employee plus one, and $133.86 for a family. This equates to approximately $117.60 of savings for an individual plan, $235.20 a year for individual plus one, and $411.72 a year for a family plan. And just a note, employees contribute 100% of the dental premium. The town does not contribute anything towards this. So this does not affect a town appropriation or affect OPEB. That's all I have.
I'm sure employees will really appreciate this. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, that is all our current and old business and our old business. Now we move into current business, and our first item is the final vote on the annual town meeting warrant articles. So the latest version of the warrant is in your packet, and I guess we should go through them one at a time. And what we're looking for ultimately, we could have a discussion, but we're looking ultimately for whether we are going to recommend approval at annual town meeting or not as a board. So why don't I ask you to kind of go through them and give us the thumbnail of what each one is.
All right. So in your Google Drive, you'll see a copy of the warrant booklet. And I can start, these are the final article numbers. Since Thursday, with the draft warrant that Finance met on, there was only one article removed, and that was a sewer commission article. They voted at their last meeting to remove that, so that has been removed, and the ones that followed that article were renumbered appropriately. So starting at the first one, it is to hear regular written reports. This is an annual article that if there's any town officer or committee that would like to make a report, it's done under this article.
I move we recommend approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I just had one question. Do a lot of these just say Board of Selectmen approved, just because that's the way it's written in there, and we haven't approved them yet?
Correct.
Right, okay.
That's the only one, actually, that the rest, I had removed that reference.
Oh, okay.
And we'll insert that tonight. Article 2 is to amend the general bylaws to add a new bylaw on revolving funds, and this is a requirement under the Municipal Modernization Act. And it just outlines the purpose, the expenditure limitations, the procedures, and the authorized accounts with a corresponding table.
I make a motion we recommend approval of Article 2.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 3 is also referring to revolving funds, and this will continue to be on town meeting warrants, even though we now have requirement of a bylaw. It is the authorization for the spending limits for those corresponding revolving funds.
And you noted at the Finance Committee meeting that there was no change in these limits from last year.
Correct, no change.
I make a motion we recommend approval Article 3.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 4 is addressing payment of prior year expenses. At this time, there are no prior year expenses.
I make a motion we make recommendation at town meeting.
Second.
So is it there because something
may come up.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 5 is to amend the amounts voted for the fiscal 18 budget. So this will address any deficits in any accounts, including snow and ice.
I make a motion we make recommendation at town meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Article 6 is to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer available funds for the fiscal 19 capital plan.
I make a motion, we recommend approval of Article 6.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 7 is for the fiscal 19 omnibus budget.
Make a motion, we recommend approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 8 is for transfer to the regular stabilization fund.
And the expected
And
amount?
the earmark for that is $87,000.
Make a motion, we recommend approval for Article 8.
Second.
And that 87 is going to stay? That's not going to change?
Yes.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 9 is to transfer funds into the Special Purpose Stabilization Fund, and the recommendation is $200,000 from free cash.
Make a motion, we recommend Article 9.
Second.
Again, that will stay?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 10 is to raise and appropriate or transfer funds into the OPEB trust fund. And that the recommendation is to put $100,000 of free cash from town side and $656 from sewer retained earnings.
Make a motion, we recommend approval of Article 10.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 11 is for the fiscal 19 sewer enterprise fund budget.
Make a motion, we recommend approval of Article 11.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 12 is to transfer funds into the sewer capital reserve stabilization fund, $29,000.
Make a motion that we recommend Article 12.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 13 is to raise and appropriate transfer funds into the solid waste disposal program enterprise fund for fiscal 19.
And the amount?
$292. $292,000, sorry. Even.
That would have been a deal.
Make a motion, we recommend approval of Article 13.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 14 is to raise and appropriate or transfer available funds into the water enterprise fund for fiscal 19. And it's $25,000.
Make a motion, we recommend approval of Article 14.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 15 is to appropriate from the Public Educational Governmental Access and Cable-Related Funds Revenue a amount of $192,600.
Make a motion, we recommend approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Now, that amount was dependent on what we approved tonight, is that correct? So that amount is
Well,
set?
yes and no. So they have, this fund requires that they have this amount of money in the bank, at the start of the fiscal year. So they are using their prior year's revenues, but those funds are available now without the funds that are in the agreement. So the funds in the agreement will build that account up even greater.
Okay. But I remember at the finance review, they may have made it contingent upon knowing whether we
Right, 'cause
approved that tonight, right?
They
Okay.
thought, they wanted to make sure that that revenue source was going to be there for the future.
Mhm.
And they wouldn't continue to draw on
Okay.
prior years.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 16 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money from the sale of cemetery lots to be used for the care and improvement and embellishment of the town's cemeteries. And that amount is $20,000.
Make a motion, we recommend approval of Article 16.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 17 is to vote to rescind the sum of $838,675 from a previous borrowing authorization at the May 3rd, 2014 annual town meeting, Article 25 for sewer construction.
Make a motion, we recommend approval of Article 17.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 18 is to vote to rescind the sum of $300,000 from a borrowing authorization from the May 2nd, 2015 annual town meeting, Article 38 for sewer construction.
Make a motion, we recommend approval of Article 18.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 19 is to vote to rescind the sum of $256,000, which was the remaining borrowing authorization from Article 15 of the May 3rd, 2014 annual town meeting for the purchase of the Lane property.
Make a motion, we recommend Article 19.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 20 is to authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey the building known as the Brooks House for the purpose of conveyance to sell the building itself and not the land. In this article, just as a note, after a review by town council, it's actually not required to be voted at town meeting, but you may choose to do so. It's the property itself doesn't require a town meeting vote. If it were the land, it would.
I make a motion, we recommend approval.
Second.
And just as I stated at the Finance Committee meeting, that if this were to go forward, the Architectural Preservation District Committee has jurisdiction over demolition or removal of a building within that district.
My issue with this article is I don't think we have a comprehensive plan for the buildings as a whole, and I think taking them piecemeal is not an approach that I would personally recommend, nor do I support. I hadn't heard about this before the last meeting, and personally, I am not in favor of this until we have I'm not in favor of doing anything until we really look at what our overall comprehensive plan is for all of the buildings that we've been talking about. So I am not in support of this article.
Well, personally, I think this adds to the plan, because we got to see if somebody wants it first, because if it turns out nobody wants it, then that absolutely feeds into the plan. And if we're going to knock it down, it's part of that process too, because we have to prove to the Architectural Protection District that we tried to do something with it. So it's as much, to me, a fact-finding mission as it is an action.
You've got to start somewhere.
I understand what you're saying. I think that we need to look at as a comprehensive solution, and I'm not, I understand your rationale, but I was dismayed to hear this article without having anything leading up to it, having any conversations leading up to it, nor have we talked in depth as a board, which is very frustrating to me that we can't continue the discussions that we started. I thought we had momentum, I thought we had charrettes, and I'm frustrated that that's not continuing. And I think discussion just sort of ended, and then this article popped up without any discussion, and I'm not in favor of it.
And the reason I'm supporting this, and I support old buildings, and I hate the concept of moving it just for its historical, but based on what it used to be a working farm, which is now a school, that we did have continuing discussions after town meeting that they didn't authorize us to convey out the properties. We've had charrettes, we've had tours, we've had additional feedback from various people. I think that to try to tie every single building together is going to make every single building fail. So I think that we do need to divide and conquer. The concept of using one property to pay for another is not going to probably be realistic based on the work that each building would need to do. I think we have to deal with each one individually, and that's why I support the concept of removing this building and keeping the land.
Well, I would just make one more comment to say that to try to tie them all together, is not realistic or not to our advantage. I completely disagree with that. I think if we're talking about a town green, or we're talking about relocation of the town hall, or we're talking about repurposing the town hall, or whether we're talking about staying here, I think they all tie together. And I think that we have offices currently in the Brooks House. Granted, the rental space is not there any longer, but, you know, John Londa has his office there. Is there a plan of where he's going to go? Has that been thought out? Where is that office space going to be? You know, none of that has been talked about. And I do think that each decision that we make has an impact. For every action, there is a reaction. And I think that it's going to be a domino effect. If we make a building, for example, on the town hall without thinking about the Ritter, that's disastrous. If we make a decision on the TCP without taking into account the office space that's needed, that again would be disastrous. They're all one on top of each other. So we talked about a town center plan, and somehow we've diverged from that. And I think that's really unfortunate. I think that the townspeople gave us very clear direction that they want a comprehensive solution. They want to know what the plan is for all of our buildings and what our goal and vision is for moving forward. And where now we're going to take it apart and do it piecemeal, that's completely contrary to everything that we said.
I agree with you for almost entirely of what you said. I just don't put the Brooks House in the same category as all the other buildings.
You don't, but other people may.
And
I think we've heard-
I also feel that the Building Reuse Committee worked long and hard to put a comprehensive plan together.
That the townspeople voted down.
Right. So we may not be able...
I don't know that the townspeople voted it down. I think they voted down an article that gave the Board of Selectmen the ability to market the properties. That's what they voted down. I think I agree with Ms. McQuaid, but I also agree with you, Paula. I think that certain pieces of the 5 building properties are connected. If you talked about a village green, I think you have to consider whatever you do with the Ritter at the same time. If you talk about the Passios, you have to determine what are you going to do with your municipal offices. Mm-hmm. But I believe we've heard enough from all the charrettes that the Brooks didn't really fit into anybody's plan as a contingency, and it did show up as an expense in the Vertex report that I don't know that I could justify.
And where is Mr. Longe's office going to be?
I'm not sure one person's office should be.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But where is it going to be?
The rental
what is the plan? I'm just asking.
Where is the PAC studio going to be? Where is the superintendent's office?
But we're talking about taking. But we're taking apart. We're talking about selling the building. So we've sold the office space. I'm just so.
He's not going to be homeless.
Well,
we got to know whether he's going to be in TCP or whether he's going to be in the middle school, because I doubt that he's going to be in the middle high school.
Well, I just, and I'm happy to see it on the warrant, and I hope that it stays there. I hope that the townspeople will be able to chime in, and if the townspeople support this, then great. I personally think that this diverges from our overall goal of coming up with a building reuse plan, town vision plan. And I'm not in favor of it. But we can talk ad nauseum. I'm not going to change my mind, and neither have you guys. So
I had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
So we're going to recommend 4-1, and we'll list that out.
Article 1 is a citizen's petition to vote.
Article 21.
Sorry, 21.
Don't go back.
To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey to Hickory Hills landowners the property located at 199 Townsend Harbor Road, Assessors Map 42, Parcel 1, 285 Townsend Harbor Road, Assessors Map 43, Parcel 3, and to Ryan and Marley Dixon, the owners of the property located at 307 Townsend Harbor Road, Assessors Map 43, Parcel 1, and their successors, a perpetual easement along and upon portions of the town-owned property along Townsend Harbor Road.
That's a typo. It should be from.
Yes. From 169 Townsend Harbor Road to 307 Townsend Harbor Road, approximately 12 feet wide by 1,900 feet long, for the purpose of installing overtopping protection along Hickory Hills Dam and maintenance thereof, on such terms and conditions which the Board of Selectmen may determine.
I would recommend that because there's 3 of the Board of Selectmen members who are residents of Hickory Hills, that the board does not make a recommendation on this warrant article.
And I would agree, and I will say I've filed a prior disclosure relative to this article and to my involvement as a member of the Dam Committee for Hickory Hills. I voted, what is it called? It's a notice of, it's basically saying appearance of conflict of interest. And was advised by town council that I could represent as long as I had filed that form, and I will do that again before town meeting, because I am a member of the Dam Committee. However, John Fortune, who's the chair, will be presenting it. I have spoken with the town manager. I know we will not be making a recommendation, but in order for people to see, as they do with other articles, a presentation about the article, there may be an invitation to the Dam Committee to come in and just present the article prior to town meeting to the board as well as to people at home.
And I will go on record, even though we're not going to take a vote, that I'm in support of this because this is work to make sure that the dam will not fail in the event of catastrophic additional water and other issues.
That's correct.
I agree.
Okay. So we should actually state that the selectmen.
Do you want to say 3 members of the Board of Selectmen abstain
I would
from making-
rather say, rather than they will not make a recommendation, I would like to have it explained why we will not make a recommendation.
So it's probably safe to have a vote. Well, no, you can't take any vote on it anyway, so.
Right.
You could just leave it blank.
We could explain it to the moderator when he asks for our recommendation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll have town council help me with some wording, and I'll just respond to the moderator when he asks, all right?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. You know, we do have the ability to use the rule of necessity, but I don't believe it's appropriate in this particular instance.
Right.
I mean, if there was a failure of the dam or something, I think
Right.
perhaps
Then we
wanna
would
do
have
that,
to
right?
invoke, right.
Article 22 is to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey the property located at 161 Gilchrist Street, shown on Assessor's Map 31, Parcel 10, from the Board of Selectmen for general purposes to the Board of Selectmen for the purpose of conveyance on such terms and conditions and for such consideration as the Board of Selectmen deems appropriate, and to take any legal action necessary to effectuate the same, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire in partial or full consideration of the 161 Gilchrist Street property, that other property located at 171 Gilchrist Street, shown on Assessor's Map 31, Parcel 11, for the purpose of conservation land in order to obtain meaningful access to the Lane Conservation property. This was submitted by Conservation. In your packet, there is a map showing the access way that the town owns. It's a small strip of land that would, this article would allow the Board of Selectmen to convey that, and it would be a separate exchange as far as the conservation land.
Yeah, this came up during the acquisition of the Lane property as a member of the land acquisition team, but it was a much longer name of our committee, I can't remember. But it was, all of us felt that this was an important, access from that area of town was important to the Lane property, and that if and when it became available, that we would need to look at the possibility of conveying this. So I absolutely support this article. I think it will give meaningful access to the Lane property from that area.
Now, who's going to determine what land gets swapped? I know that the developer wants this thin parcel, but who's going to determine what piece the town gets?
Would be
the size of the piece the town gets.
Would be the Board of Selectmen.
So
yeah, it would be a negotiation, I would think.
So some representative of the Board of Selectmen will be in a negotiating team.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
I make motion that we recommend approval of Article 22.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
I would assume that we'll work with conservation on that.
Absolutely. I would hope.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Article 23 is to see if the town will vote to transfer its right, title, and interest to the land at 174 Northfield Road rear, shown on Assessor's Map 41, Block 3, Lot 0, from the Board of Selectmen, for which said property is held to convey all of such property to Hickory Hills Landowners, Inc., on such terms and conditions and for such consideration as the Board of Selectmen deems appropriate. And this is a citizen's petition as well. And in your packet, you will find a map of that parcel. It's a very small piece of land owned by the town that has no direct access anywhere. It's landlocked.
Do we know how we came to own that property?
I'm not sure of the history. It might have happened in a land transfer a long time ago.
I might suggest that this is another case where the three of us need to.
Because we're just conveying it, we're not charging them or anything.
And I would say that I would want to wait till town meeting to hear the full story on this, personally.
They are also willing to come into a selectmen's meeting to discuss this. And I asked via email the person that petitioned their intended use, and the response was, as part of our ongoing effort to secure the wetlands and watershed of Hickory Hills Landowners, Inc. wishes to purchase the parcel from the town in order to add to its greenway. We have no intention of developing it at this time and wish to keep it natural. But they can come in as well and to a future meeting.
So I might be interested in supporting it if there's that effectively conservation easement on the deed itself, so that, you know, that would be one way to do it.
The recommendation is to wait till town meeting, though?
Yep.
Well, I think we're going to be in another case where the three of us.
Yeah, we can't make a recommendation.
But you can speak if you'd like.
Right, you can speak as yeah.
Article 24 is to see if the town will authorize the demolition and removal of the building and all related structures and site cleanup of the town-owned property known as the old primary building located at 30 School Street in the town of Lunenburg. The property further identified on Assessor's Map 71, Block 76, Parcel ID number 162/71.0-0076-0000.0, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and raise and appropriate the sum of $400,000 or some other sum or sums, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with approval of the selectmen, be authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7, Subsection 1 of the general laws, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore, and that the Board of Selectmen be authorized to take any other action necessary to carry out this project. And further, to see whether such vote will be contingent upon a vote by ballot at the annual town election, to exclude the amounts necessary to repay the debt service on any such borrowing from the property tax limitation provisions of Chapter 59, Section 21C of the general laws, Proposition 2 1/2, or to take any other action relative to thereto. And this was a citizen's petition, and the citizen petitioner is here tonight, as well as other people who signed questions on that.
Okay. Is there a motion, or do we want to hear?
I would like to hear from the petitioner.
Sure.
Good evening, Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. This citizen's petition was the result of a sizable number of citizens getting together multiple times over the past 2 or 3 months. We did basically, I'm going to do an abbreviated presentation tonight. We submitted this, or presented this to the Finance Committee at their last meeting, and feel we came out of there with the best response we could have asked for. Their recommendation will be held until town meeting 4. Again, this is one of those that, as one of the previous speakers spoke, it does separate out one of the buildings from the 5 buildings we've been talking about. One of the reasons that we felt that this was appropriate is that the charrette that we had at the middle high school and the senior center meeting on the 5 buildings, one of the strong recommendations that came out of both of those meetings was that, number one, that building's been empty for 15 years plus, and there was strong support for it to be taken down. There are a number of ideas as to what happens with that property afterwards, centered around it being open space for the public to use sun up to sundown and not be tied up as a sports venue or anything like that. It will be like a town park with some possible additions down the road that would be presented separately to help enhance farmers market, possibly a small performance venue to allow us to move band concerts to a much safer location, and secondly, for performance, we could have small performance events and festivals on that property in a much safer venue than in the triangle that presently some of these events happen. Gets it away from the main roads. With the building gone, it opens up more space. The parking layout should improve the number of parking spaces available for that area. We've worked, or we've had a member of the Historical Society in our group, and they have had some initial discussions about what our plan is, and we have promised to work closely with them to fulfill their needs also, tied into any project that goes forward. Again, that's taking it a little bit beyond what this article really is asking for. The Vertec report gave us numbers that I did hand out to the board this evening. There are 2 sheets that, or 1 sheet actually, that covers the actual numbers from that report, the costs associated with demolition that the town asked to be added to that report, and how it calculates out as the if the $400,000 is allocated. Based on the numbers from that report, the building removal cost, including remediation, is estimated at $367,038. That would leave us with a balance, assuming $400,000 is available, of $32,962, and we see that as a cushion for unanticipated expense, and additionally, if we do have that amount of money available, possibly to get the lot cleaned up and have it usable immediately after demolition, or within a short time after demolition, without any other work required, to allow the citizens of Lunenburg to recreate on that property safely. Okay. As the town manager reported in her report, there is apparently an issue with the ballot question that goes along with this article. I would like to discuss that separately when it comes up on the agenda a little bit later. As for the effect on the taxpayer for the borrowing of the $4,000, could I go back to the other breakdown sheet for just a second? There's one thing I left out. With the exempted borrowing, there will be an interest expense to borrow the $400,000. It's kind of a moving number depending on when that money is borrowed and what the term of that borrowing is. I was given a number to work with of a 3% interest for 12 months would yield a $12,000 interest expense. Again, that could be less if we go 6 months. It would be roughly $12,000, assuming we get 3%. If it's 12 months, it would be less if we go 6 months. Yes, it should be half of that. And the that interest expense would have to be added on to the town budget in the line item that funds short-term borrowing interest expense in the fiscal year that money is actually borrowed. And that would be determined by the estimated start time of the project and completion of the project itself. So that would be up to the financial side of the town to decide the best way to do that. But we throw that number in there just so that folks are aware that there's an additional $12,000, potential $12,000 expense in interest. Okay, and then finally to the breakdown sheet, giving us a rough idea as to how it impacts the individual taxpayer. The number that I struggled the other evening with, I have set in my mind finally. Total real estate valuation for 2018 was $1.275 billion. As I said the other night, that is a huge number. That is the actual dollar value of all the real estate at the time that estimate for 2018 was calculated. On top of that, new growth is added in. So the estimated FY 2019 real estate valuation is estimated to be at $1.293 billion. So there will be roughly a $20 million increase in valuation. Skipping down beyond these, actually, we set this sheet up with three possible value amounts for the actual amount of money to be authorized by the article. I'm only going to bring you to the $400,000 line because we could potentially authorize $350,000, but I'm told we would not be able to go to a high number as $450,000 with the article the way it's written. So for the $400,000 borrowing, we end up with a 31 cent per thousand add-on to the tax rate in the fiscal year that the money's borrowed. For a $250,000 home, borrowing $400,000, that would mean a $77.29 increase in one fiscal year. This is intended to be a one and done. The Finance Committee did mention that there may be a reason to choose to spread the borrowing over 2 years, which would cut that number in half, but it would stay on the tax bill for 2 years. Just to throw out one more number, our values in town do vary quite a bit on properties, and some of them are up in the higher range. $500,000 property for $400,000 in borrowing, the tax bill would increase $154.58, again for 1 year, or half of that amount if we spread it over 2 years. That's pretty much my presentation for the article. Are there any questions?
So I'll echo the questions that were raised at the Finance Committee meeting, okay, which was that you got the numbers from the Vertex report, and the concern I have, which I discussed with you after the meeting, was that this amount states the estimated costs will be dependent on the findings of a comprehensive pre-removal demolition survey as well as selected contractor schedule. So my concern is that even though you've got a certain amount of cushions in here, that this might not be enough, and that whatever the way a debt exclusion works is that the town votes to exclude from Proposition 2.5 limits the debt, but not the dollar amount. So if this was $100,000 more, we wouldn't go back to the people to vote again. It's whatever it is the number. So I'm concerned with, I think that these numbers are too restrictive based on what could go on with that building. And the other comment I have is that, so there are a couple of things. One, the theory before was the property was going to be sold and somebody else was going to tear it down. what is the plan and the cost estimated to build, to renovate the property afterwards? Anyone have any idea on that cost?
I'm not sure that I understand your question, other than, are you asking what it will take to
make it
renovate it for green space and available to the public?
That's the way you presented this, was that this was going to be a public thing.
I just
So
wanted to be
what's it
sure
gonna-
I was clear in my thought
what's it gonna
process
cost
before
on
I
that
speak. Our feeling is that at the end of this project, if it does come in within budget, that property would be usable at the completion of this budget, this expenditure. It would not be manicured lawns and nice new sidewalks and things like that. It would be a cleaned up property that would be safe enough to have the public on, and the playground equipment gone, and any other hazard that needed to be removed would either be removed under this project, or I believe that similar to Wallace Park, if there were things left over after this money is expended that still need to be done, I'm sure we can get projects put together by a partnership between the town and volunteers, and we could get it done.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Passios.
Yes.
I appreciate all the hard work and everything you're trying to accomplish. I appreciate the uses, and I think those are great ideas too, the recreation, the space for the farmer's market, the safe performance space. I just, as an architect, as someone who's educated in urban design and planning, that's just the worst piece of property that we own to put a park on. As far as it's at the dead-end street, there's a 50-foot grade change from the front of the property to the back of the property. It's not visible from the street. It doesn't create a connection between areas. People aren't going to pass by it and see the activity and appreciate it, or see the activity and go to it. Again, no visibility. Someone could get hurt back there and no one would see. And again, I appreciate all the work you did, the funding, the financing, things like that. But as far as land that we have, I mean, the space between the Kids Kingdom Playground and the Passios is about the same size, and it's flat, and it's visible, and it's along a connected route between the school campus and the center of town. And I just feel like putting effort into a property that's subpar when we have one that would be perfect for all those things that you're talking about, that's close to town facilities, it has restroom amenities if people need it, it's got the library there, it's got parking. It's just, as far as putting a shine on something that's not worth putting a shine on, to me. I mean, I think to make that property, give back to the town, I think, again, I understand the concerns of people not wanting to sell it and put it in the hands of somebody else, but a land lease or something where whoever's going to use it would take on the cost of tearing it down, I think that's just a better effort, a better use of time and resources for the people of the town, personally.
Katie, just before you, I'll defer to you in just a second.
I'd like to say something.
Your comment about the property being on the end of a dead-end street, out of sight, and the most improbable space to use for a public park and farmer's market, excuse me. In an effort to do some research to help the farmer's market here in Lunenburg this past summer, I spent some time up in the White Mountains and north of the White Mountains in New Hampshire. I traveled on a number of occasions to Lancaster, New Hampshire, who has their farmer's market on their green in the center of town. And I'll tell you, if we had a green like they have up there, we would be in heaven. Now, I moved to Littleton, New Hampshire. They do not have that luxury, but they do have a park. I've got to guess that it is 2/10 of a mile down a road that is actually looks like a driveway that passes by a senior housing project along the river. It continues another 100 feet to a parking area, and at the very end of that, this is a dead-end road, there's a town park. There's a farmer's market that draws 45 vendors They are there every Sunday, I believe it is, during the summer. It's thriving. People come from all around. They park on Main Street. There was a bridge actually that connects over the river that was added in a municipal project a number of years ago. So the premise that you can't put a public park at the end of a dead-end street or dead-end road, I don't believe is valid.
I didn't say you can't. I'm saying when you have such a better option, why would you try to force it there when you could do it somewhere else, easier, better, and just get more of everything out of more out of your effort?
Well, it's also the first proposal that's been brought forward other than the Brooks House from as a result of any of these meetings and how many years of discussion of what should we do with these properties. If you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I'd like to defer to...
Very well. Ms. Bertram has a question.
Okay.
I don't have a question. I have a comment. This goes back exactly to my point earlier. I'm not opposed to putting a green space over there, and I am very much in favor of creating more green space in the center. I'm also very much in favor of increasing our exposure for our farmers. Personally, and this is just my opinion, we haven't talked about this as a plan. Ideally, if we relocate the town hall, what I would like to see is this is an indoor farmers market, indoor crafters for homemade soaps, homemade goods, with an additional outdoor farmers market adjacent. So that's personally what I would like to see happen, but this to me goes back to the plan. I share Mr. Ebersol's concerns about the costs. I think this may cover the demolition. I don't think that you're going to end up with a beautiful, usable park for this amount of money. I'm concerned about the pavement. I'm concerned about the loaming and seeding. I'm concerned about watering. I'm concerned about walkways, concerned about park benches. But this goes back to my point of a plan, is if we do end up removing the Brooks House, is there a way to remove the turnaround in front of the TCP? But again, that depends on what happens to the TCP. Do we put a park there? Do we put the park there? Do we lease the Ritter and make it a restaurant or a retail establishment, and then therefore there's a parking requirement? Again, to me, it goes back to a comprehensive plan. I share your frustration about not a plan coming forward, and I wish that we had a plan. When we talk about committee reports at the beginning of town meeting, I truly wish we had something to report. And I hope that next year there is a plan with involvement from all the citizens to have these kind of discussions. And I truly understand the frustration of let's do something, because I share it. But I think that at this point we need to look at all of the pieces and put it together and build the puzzle together. And I think that this, again, takes one piece out of the equation without determining a long-range plan. And I honestly, I don't think that it's enough funding. Yes, it will remove the building, but do I think it will get us where we need to be as a community? No, I don't. So I would like to look at a comprehensive plan that says, okay, this is where the green space is going to go. This is what we're going to do with the farmers. This is how we're going to improve agriculture. This is what we're going to do for recreation opportunities, and we don't have it. And I truly hope, and I'm hearing the message that it needs to happen. But I think that this article, similar to the Brooks House, is not looking at the comprehensive and coming up with a vision and a plan.
May I speak to a couple of answers to some of the questions? One is that property currently is maintained by the town. There is land maintenance that goes into that property, so it's sort of, the facade usually looks good. It's not as if the grass is overgrown or the trees aren't cared for. So if you just remove the building and then seed that, there's already mowing and maintenance taking place on that site. And so I think the most simple way to look at it is, so long as seed and grass go where the vacant building was, the parcel that is not part of the building is already quite nice, with the exception of the playground. I walked it many times this fall. Two sides of it are lined with historic maples. There's actually history on that site of, we talked to the Historical Society as part of our group, and there's actually history of there being recreational and parade and park activities that take place on that site. And so I look at the vacant building as just something that has to be dealt with. We're so used to looking at it and so used to accepting that it's there. I compare it to my laundry piles. I don't see them, but it's the first thing you'd notice. I think a lot of us who live here don't see it, but it's probably one of the first things that people notice when they come through. And not only from the front, we've sort of maintained that it looks like a building, but if you walk that site, all the other sides of it are just completely deplorable. And some of our neighbors see that, and some people we've met with and who talk about the site are abutters of the property. And I think it's time to do something, and taking that building and returning it to grass is very simple. There's costs associated with having that building there in terms of insurance, and I think there's some costs we eliminate by eliminating the building. And like I said at the Finance Committee meeting, the Vertex study broke the cost of all the buildings it studied into 3 groups, and the first level was immediate costs, and that was either something that had completely failed or something that was dangerous. And that building has $1.1 million worth of work in that immediate needs category. So that building will always need a huge investment to reopen that's far greater than the cost to remove it. I think we remove it and you simply just need grass on the site of the building, and it's already a beautiful lot. I walked it so many times, and there's some heritage maples there. There's some things tucked there that are so special and unique. It's far more than just an arbitrary piece of land, and it's really not a dead end. If you stand in different places in town, and I've done this, you can see Old Primary from so many different places. You can see it from out front of here. So it's not a dead end, it's actually right in the center of our town.
But isn't a dead end a road that you can't, isn't a throughway?
Well, perhaps, yes, we're being technical, but then with
You can also see it because there's a tall building
I'm
there.
just
If
about
there's no
complete.
building.
When you think of the Historical Society as our town's museum and other municipal buildings, you actually create a perfect little municipal campus in that spot. I can't think of a better way to feature the Historical Society than to have it on a town, to have it as part of an open space or a park. And again, like Dave said, the tree lighting ceremony, band concerts on that triangle of land, there's no parking, there's no handicap accessibility to the band concerts. We could take this space, the tree lighting was scary because it's dark. And I had 4 kids and they wanted to play a little, and it's like a gigantic panic attack. I don't see that as being a positive place to meet as cars drive faster, more people are texting. I would love to let them run loose out of tree lighting in a place that's truly safe. Maybe there's parking spaces. Maybe it's easier for handicapped to go to a band concert because there's actually a real parking spot. I think there's a huge asset to using this spot, and we have met as such a large group of people, and we've talked and shared, and so it's not something random. We've worked awfully hard on the concept, and I think it would be a lovely addition, especially just prior to turning 300, to create these spaces where we know Lunenburg can always come together. So, thank you, Dave.
Thank you. I personally have about 8 reasons why I would have trouble supporting this warrant at this particular time, and I share Mrs. Bertram's frustration of a lack of a plan. I particularly share it because I've been working on it for 5 years. But let me tell you something about the magnitude. If you look at the capital plan and input, and they have input the Vertex information for all of the buildings, the building requirements are $13.5 million. If you put the non-building related capital requests through the year 2028, that's another 6.5. So the magnitude of this problem is $20 million. And that's one of the reasons why the plan is so difficult to get off the ground. I share what I believe is Mrs. Bertram's point, that it's really difficult to pick one out of order without understanding the rest of the plan and to leapfrog it based on a group of people who like that particular portion of the plan. And I don't disagree with it. If the town votes for it, I think the demolition of that structure is a good piece of the overall plan. I'm just not sure it's the top priority, and I'm not sure it's the right one to start with. And I trust the town's capital planning committee, I trust the town manager to begin to work a plan that tells us where we need to spend our dollars, and $400,000 to do the demolition without doing any improvements, just to get a flat piece of land, I would have trouble supporting that.
I just want to be clear, I agree with all the sentiments that the previous speaker talked about. I think that the building, obviously, I believe the building needs to come down. I absolutely do. And I love the idea of a park in front of the Historical Society, and I love the idea of improving that piece of property. But again, I think we've got to look at as a whole, and I think that we've got to look at what's the use going to be of the Ritter. How does that impact this area? Because parking at the Ritter is difficult, and if we do end up doing something different with that building, what are the parking requirements going to be, and how is the impact on the primary school? And I've walked the property numerous times. I went on the tour. My kids went to that school. I'm very familiar with the property. I would disagree that just taking the building down is going to make a park. I think there's a lot of work that has to happen in order to make a park. Would I love to see a park there? Absolutely. But I think that we've got to come up with a plan as a whole, take this whole area and determine what's going to happen and prioritize the order in which they happen.
And park there is fine. I think a nice plaza or something in front of the Historic Society would be great to really, highlight that. But I also think a park with a something to bring people down there is important. A park with a field isn't the same thing as a park with a contributing element, some, restaurant or something to bring people down there to really get the foot traffic and appreciate it. Because as soon as you take that building down, that property is just a big hole in the ground.
Yeah, I agree with some of your points. I don't necessarily agree that just a park is a park. I mean, I grew up in the town of Pepperell, and there are many parks that I went to as a kid and played Frisbee or played football that were just parks.
Right, but for that dead-end park, again, compared to the other places that we have as part of the discussion, to single that out and say that that's the best place for the park without looking at all the other ones, when you look at it in the scope of things,
I don't disagree with that point. I don't disagree with that point.
And again, I would just touch on, I get the frustration. Again, I've been working on this for many, many years. And part of the reason, and it's a good thing too, that we haven't gotten anywhere is because we've gotten a lot of feedback and a lot of input from the whole town. I mean, to say, I understand you've got a group of people together, and that's great. I appreciate you doing that, but it was a group of people who generally agree with each other who think this should happen. To exclude the entirety of the town from the discussion that you had is a little bit taking them out of the process. So, again, to just put it on the town warrant and vote on it knee-jerk kind of shortchanges the conversation to me for the whole town. I'm not trying to take away from what you guys have been doing, but it's something that was an ongoing process that the whole town is trying to talk about, that cherry-picking one thing from the conversation, I have a hard time with.
In the Vertex report, didn't they say there was like an $8,000 study that would have to go into finding out the cost of demolition?
Mr. Chairman,
the
could I speak to that?
Sure.
Okay. In the numbers that are on the breakdown of what it would cost to get the building down, there is a comprehensive demolition survey, and that is what you're alluding to.
Okay.
The number on this report is $7,600. At the Finance Committee meeting the other evening, the DPW director got up, and he was the first one to express the concerns that you were expressing this evening about the dollar amounts could be extremely one way. He felt could very well be one much higher, but this study would be the thing that would drive and tell us that number.
So
but he also, could I finish my point?
Mm-hmm.
But he also said that study can be done for $3,000, and he was adamant about that, $3,000 to $4,000. So that speaks to the fact that these numbers have been inflated, that one in particular, by 100% by Vertec. If you carry that number through the rest of them, and I don't agree that it would be that padded, but if you carry the fact that they doubled that one, they have heavily padded the rest of it so that they gave us a number that they felt was comfortably high so we could accomplish the project.
I'm afraid I can't just let that statement stand.
That's fine.
We paid a good deal of money to have engineers do an assessment, and they gave us assessments, and that was data that was better than the last data that we got when we had TAPE do a higher level assessment. We could get crippled by data analysis and spend a lot of money getting better and better data. What the DPW director said was off the top of his head. I wouldn't infer from what he said that the numbers were doubled or anything else. I don't think it's a problem of, is it 400,000 or 407,000? I think it's a problem is that the right $400,000 to spend of 20 million first? That's the point I'm trying to make.
Thank you.
And as much as I love old buildings, I think that this one needs to come down. My concern is I don't think this is the right number.
Right. You know, I mean, I think that the very least we should do the comprehensive pre-demolition survey before taking any further steps.
Well, and I don't disagree with that. But again, this goes to having the discussion of what is our next steps? Are we going to do we all agree that the primary needs to come down? Do we do an RFP to find out exactly what that's going to cost? You know, those are the kind of decisions that I think we need to make. And that's why I keep saying, when are we going to talk about this? When are we going to talk about this? Because those are the kind of nitty-gritty discussions we have to have, and that we need to be bringing to the town and saying, okay, this is our plan. What do you guys think of this? And we're not doing that. So I think that this group, and I applaud your efforts, have come up and said, okay, everybody agrees that this building isn't habitable. We can't rehab it. You know, let's do something. And I don't disagree with let's do something, but I think we got to take a step back and reconvene at the table, and really reconvene at the table and say, okay, we really want more green space. Where are we going to put it? And I think, personally, as someone who grew up in the town of Pepperell and had fireman's musters and festivals, and I worked for years as an art and crafts director for a program that was all outside, and I had over 600 kids. So I understand the need for green space, and I share it. You know, I think that's really lacking here in Lunenburg. So I support the idea of green space and a town gathering place, bigger than the gazebo, and I share the concern about bringing my grandkids to the band concerts. So I think it is a need, but I also think that we've got to sit back as a community and say, okay, if we do something with the Ritter, what are we going to do? What's the impact of that site? If we take down that building, what do we do with that lower area that's got that steep grade? How do we make it usable? Do we put pathways? Do we put benches? I think we've got to have a comprehensive plan rather than just tearing down the building.
Also, I feel like we are talking about adding more green space. However, we have to step back and look at how do we take care of the green space we have already. Look at Wallace Park, look at Marshall Park. We don't take care of the recreational space we already have. We need a much stronger commitment to taking care of what we already have before we go and invest in more green space.
And I would argue that what we're talking about is very different than we're talking about a town gathering place, and I'm not sure that any of the things that you just named could be deemed that.
Well, Wallace Park has a lot of land that was a briar patch for 40 years.
And I don't disagree with that. And again,
I'm just saying we have not committed to taking care of the space that we already have.
Nor have we developed a plan by which and presented that we're going to do that. And that goes back to the whole recreational component of, I really believe Lunenburg has an incredible agricultural history and that no one else in this area has. I don't know of anyone in our immediate area that has the kind of farms that we have, that has the kind of homemade goods that we have. We need, if in fact we do want to have modest economic development, or we do want to assist our existing farmers and our existing crafters or you know, businesses, then we need to do that. And we're hearing that that's the desire. So how do we do it? And does that mean that we look at places like Wallace Park? But we have to come up with a plan. And we really, and I'm really excited about the meeting with the Agricultural Commission and the Planning Board. And I hope that we really start in-depth conversations like this. But I share the concern that we've got to come up and prioritize how we approach it.
Do I have a recommendation on this particular article?
So we do not recommend approval?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, could I make one very brief final comment? As I stated at the Finance Committee meeting the other evening, we feel we've done our due diligence as best we can with the data available. We intend to take this to our town meeting floor. It is on the warrant officially and legally. So we will also debate it there with the townspeople, and our hope is that they will agree with our group. Thank you for your vote.
Thank you. Thank you. 25.
To see if the town will vote to amend the sewer service area, adding Tilton Avenue to the Lunenburg sewer service area and sewer service zone. And it identifies the parcel numbers associated with that area.
Mr. Chairman, I was at the Sewer Commission meeting when they discussed this. This was a parcel that was excluded when the town's sewer service area map was originally done. They have determined that they believe that it should go back into it, partly because of the needs of the residents. The article that was taken off was to actually do a betterment to put a sewer in. They did not get the required 2/3 vote. In fact, it was 2/3 the other way to support it. But that being said, there are some people at the initial part of the road that would qualify to do what's called a private sewer extension if this was included in the sewer service. So I would make a motion that we recommend approval.
How much land are we talking about?
Oh, very
It's
little.
the entire street.
It's Tilton Ave, you know where John's Watch is? The little
Yes.
street
But how
there.
many parcels are affected, and 2/3 of them said they don't want sewer?
They don't want sewer, but this puts it in the area. We're not voting to extend the pipe. This just says people can put sewer in.
Puts it on the map as something that...
No, I know, I was just, I'm
It's like
very
the-
familiar.
The parcel that's right next to John's Watch wants to do a private.
So they did not vote against extending the sewer area. They voted against doing a betterment.
How much undeveloped land is there?
None.
There is zero?
And there's a stream that goes right behind the houses.
Get
It
that.
it should have been included in the sewer service area.
Well, there had to be a reason why it wasn't.
Well, they can't come up with any.
There was some discussion that the people at the time didn't want to be included.
Well, I'm hearing that they don't, still.
Okay.
I mean, 2/3 of the people said they don't want sewer, so why are we?
It's not a betterment.
Okay, I understand that, but it could be.
They're putting it back into the sewer service area. That's all they're
I
doing.
completely understand what you're
So
saying, but
then-
2/3 of the people
So you'd
said-
prefer to wait till town meeting? Is what you're
Yes,
saying.
absolutely.
I'll withdraw my motion. And was there a second?
I would like to second your motion, so I guess I...
What do you do his motion? Do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that, to see if the town will vote to amend the sewer service area, adding Tilton Avenue to the Lunenburg sewer service area and sewer service zone.
No, that we'd recommend approval is what.
Recommend approval.
Is there a second? Okay.
I would make a motion that we make recommendation at town meeting.
Second.
Any discussion?
So just to take, if any residents come out and oppose it, then we would have that input at that point, so.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, 26 is, this is worded exactly as the citizens petition was submitted. To eliminate Chapter 127 cigarettes, to eliminate Chapter 127-1 sale and display restricted, to eliminate Chapter 127-2 violation and penalties, and to allow the sale of cigarette rolling paper.
To eliminate it from what? I don't
From the
understand.
bylaws. So right now, you're prohibited, you cannot sell cigarette rolling papers in Lunenburg.
Oh, okay.
Since the town voted to support the legalization of recreational marijuana, and seeing as it's allowed in medical, I assume that's why they're doing it, but the citizen is not before us tonight.
Correct.
I would make a motion that we make our recommendation at town meeting.
Second.
Any discussion?
Rolling.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. 27.
Article 27 is to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court for the enactment of a special legislation revising the Lunenburg Home Rule Charter, adopted at the town election held in 1999, and filed in the office of the Archivist of the Commonwealth as provided in Section 12 of Chapter 43B of the General Laws and amended by the town on May 3rd, 2008, and enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the General Court on October 8th, 2009, in the following manner. There's 9 provisions under this article: to change the name of the Board of Selectmen to Select Board, change the manner of selection of the town clerk from elected to appointed by the town manager, subject to ratification by the Select Board, providing that providing that persons appointed to town committees be residents registered to vote in town. 4, providing for a second annual town meeting in the fall, the time and date of which to be set by bylaw. 5, providing that conduct of town meeting to be governed by town meeting time. 6, clarify and confirm the appointment powers of the Select Board and town manager to provide for appointment of various department heads be appointed by the town manager, subject to ratification by the Select Board. 7, clarifying the duties of the town manager relating to personnel management, jurisdiction over town facilities, property and day-to-day operations, the budget process and enforcement of charter provisions and town bylaws. 8, providing more specifics in the process for removal and suspension of the town manager. 9, make certain other grammatical and phrasing changes that do not alter the meaning or intent of existing provisions, as well as updating requirements of the open meeting law to comply with state law. And to authorize the Charter Review Committee to submit to the General Court for enactment as the revised charter of the town of Lunenburg the proposed legislation contained in the final report of the Charter Review Committee 2018, copies of which were placed on file in the office of the Board of Selectmen and the office of the town clerk, and copies of which were made available for public distribution at the office of the Board of Selectmen, the office of the town clerk at the town hall, at the main circulation desk of the Lunenburg Public Library, and on the town website forthwith following such filing. Said Charter Review Committee is further authorized to consult with members of the General Court and is hereby authorized to approve such changes or alteration to the draft text of the special legislation as may be suggested by the General Court, if any.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm going to end up recommending that we don't take a position tonight because there is a hearing on Thursday. There have been lots of comments already posted various places, and written comments are being accepted. And the Charter Committee will be meeting immediately after the hearing and will consider all requested changes by any town committees, any individual people. And so therefore, we don't have a final version at this point. We will have it on Thursday. So I would make a motion that we make recommendations at town meeting.
Second.
Discussion is what then gets printed in terms of the content of the warrant article?
The article is still there. The final wording of the document may vary from this. So for instance, we may choose not to change it to Select Board, but this is okay to have this here for notice to the public because we are not expected to add anything.
So any changes the committee makes after the
hearing will go on the town website.
Handout or something.
It'll go on the website and will be available at all the various places that was already talked about.
So a motion to wait and make a recommendation at town meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I just have a question. My understanding is that it's all or nothing with charter changes. Is that correct?
We're verifying that with town council.
Okay, because my prior understanding was that it had to be adopted in full. So you're checking that with town council?
Yep.
Gee, that's funny, because when I presented to the Charter Review Committee on a petition, they said, well, we have to stay away from anything that's controversial in the least, because it's all or nothing, and we have to make sure.
The committee proceeded as if it was all or nothing. That was our belief.
And that's what it's been the last 2 charter changes, and I'm verifying that to make sure that that is the correct thing. If it's different, we will announce that on Thursday.
But I mean, if it's different, I think you should start the process over, because you were going on an incorrect assumption.
What do you mean, start the process over?
You shouldn't offer anything for this town meeting and go back and look at the changes, because the premise was, we have to be really careful. We can't.
Oh, you can't change more than.
That was an individual member's opinion. And it's but all along, we've been concerned about anything on here that might be controversial that could affect whether town meeting will support it or not. But that doesn't change the rules of what the charter committee.
But I'm saying, if it turns out that you were wrong and that you've been working under an incorrect premise, then you should start over and reboot it.
I disagree. That's not required.
It's not required, but it's ethical.
No, I don't think it's unethical.
Now, I'm hearing that we're not going to make a recommendation, and there's a public hearing Thursday, and I understand the need to hold off until we hear the public hearing. But is the board going to talk about this as a board prior to town meeting? Or?
I would hope that we would, that there are some town meeting, that we have selectmen meetings before town meeting, and that I would want.
I would want this on the agenda, because I know I have significant concerns about this. And I would like to talk about them, and I would like to go on record as them, because typically at town meeting, although we can talk as individuals, we don't. It's not the same venue, and I would like to understand all of the changes, and I would like to talk as a board. So I want to make sure this is on our agenda.
And I would also encourage you to attend the hearing, and if not, send written opinion in.
Is the hearing here on Thursday?
Here, Thursday, 7 p.m. at Town Hall. And it will be televised live and will be rebroadcast.
Thank you.
Will you have a definitive answer on whether it's all or nothing at that point?
I expect that we will, yes.
Okay, thank you.
28, to see if the town will vote to amend the Town of Lunenburg Code, Chapter 81, Town Meetings, as in 81-2, meeting and election dates, to add the word first before the words annual town meeting, and to add the following sentence at the end of the section. The second annual town meeting shall be held on the second Tuesday in November, commencing at 7 p.m., so that the section reads as follows. The first annual town meeting shall be held on the first Saturday in May, commencing at 9 a.m., and all required reports shall be made at that time. The annual town election shall be held on the third Saturday in May, commencing at 7 a.m. and ending at 5 p.m. The second annual town meeting shall be held on the second Tuesday in November, commencing at 7 p.m. And in Chapter 81-3, closing of the warrant, to insert the words first or second before the words annual meeting, both times that appears, so that the section reads as follows. All requests for the insertion of subjects in the warrant for the first or second annual meeting shall be submitted on or before 4 p.m. on the 42nd day before the date of the first or second annual meeting. The requests shall be filed in the office of the selectmen, and the date of the filing shall be noted on the request. No subject, the insertion of which is requested after the time herein designated, shall be inserted in the warrant.
Mr. Moderator, so one of the proposed charter...
Mr. Chairman?
I'm already at town meeting. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, so one of the things that the committee talked about, the Charter Review Committee, was attendance and the difficulty of meeting a quorum at town meeting, and one of the options was to have a time certain in the fall that items such as zoning articles and general bylaw articles and catch-up articles for budget and other things like that will automatically move to that, which then would make the meeting in the spring a shorter time period. We went to different discussions and felt that this would be a way that if people knew the two dates during the year that people could not schedule other things during that time period. So this article actually could happen regardless of what happens with the charter, that we have the ability to amend the town meeting. The other reason we were talking about it as second annual town meeting is that it would not follow the rules of a special town meeting. Special town meeting requires a 2/3 vote for money articles. If it was an second annual meeting, it wouldn't require it. With the theory behind the 2/3 vote for a special meeting is that the average citizen may not hear about the meeting, although in today's notifications you do. If there was a second annual meeting, you wouldn't require a 2/3 vote to do articles at that point. So
But you'd still do moneyed articles?
You could do a money article for.
Would it need to be 2/3?
You wouldn't need to have 2/3 because
I don't
it's.
like that.
I don't like that either.
Part of the thing is that it was an annual meeting. So I make a motion that we make recommendation at town meeting.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So are we going to talk about this or we're not? I guess rather than just saying we'll make a recommendation at town meeting, I mean, we just said to the legislature that we were against removing the 2/3 requirement, but yet here we are doing it. I'm very...
2/3 was for zoning. This is for the money articles at a special town meeting.
Okay, how does zoning fall in at a second annual town meeting?
Still has to have a 2/3 vote. This is, when I talked about the 2/3 vote, it was only 2/3 vote for moneyed articles. That's another section of the bylaw. It says that at a special town meeting, you have to have a 2/3 vote for money articles.
And I think we should have a 2/3 vote for money articles.
Just a point of information, and I don't disagree with you, but you don't need a 2/3 vote at the annual town meeting.
Right. So
you don't.
Right.
Okay.
And this could simply
For debt
be.
exclusions either?
Yes.
Well, for debt exclusions, you need a ballot vote.
A ballot
And
question.
any borrowing requires a 2/3 vote, and that wouldn't change here either.
A debt exclusion would be 2/3.
And I wouldn't be opposed to changing this to calling it the annual special town meeting, which would then pull in the 2/3 vote. So.
Yeah, right.
Or special town meeting held annually.
But it's just important to note that if at an annual town meeting, you don't need 2/3 vote. That was an imposition because you weren't sure that everybody knew you were going to have one.
But still, I think we have a hard enough time getting people to come in May. I think the second annual meeting, we'll have more trouble getting people to.
I don't know.
I want to understand the cost of having a town meeting. What's the cost associated with having a town meeting, with doing the warrant, mailing the warrant, printing the warrant? What's the cost?
I'd have to look at the, I believe it's around 3,000.
Yeah, I was going to say 2,000 to 3,000.
In the last 10 years, how many special town meetings have we had? Or I would say, have we? And I guess that's, I know that, but that's a question to me, is how often are they needed? Because I don't want to require us to have a meeting.
You could still, yeah, you'd have, if
So
you
I'd like
decided
to
not to have a
understand-
subject, you could get the moderator and the town clerk to show up, and then you open and close it.
Well,
the way
that's
they-
just crazy.
I understand that.
I think it's good practice to start, because planning board always gets the short end of the stick. They get stuck at the end of the town meeting. There's never anyone there to hear their actual articles. If we could have a second one always scheduled where they can plan to bring their stuff that have a captive audience, it's.
Well,
we should
I
just-
don't know that you're going to have anyone in the audience.
Well, no.
Yeah, well,
Still,
I
it's
can't
just
speak to 10 years, but we've had one for the last 5.
Yep.
But still, town meeting keeps going too long, and that's a big complaint. We need to be able to break up what we're putting on that list. And by the number of articles on here, it's going to be a long one again this year. So, again, we've been having special ones every year, but it would be good practice just to split it up, to try to make it shorter.
I don't disagree. I'm having a hard time with the 2/3, though.
Yeah, me too.
I'm fine with switching that. The previous town manager, we had a proposed article to eliminate that requirement completely from the special town meeting, and that ended up not getting it going all the way to town meeting. I think we passed over that.
I know why.
And if we need to make any appropriations at a special to set the tax rate, that's another reason for holding a special, and that's typically why we.
That's typically why we do it, yeah.
We've had them in the past.
Okay, 29.
To see if the town will vote to amend the Code of Lunenburg, Chapter 70, entitled Salary Administration Plan as follows. The position of Outreach Coordinator be added and assigned Grade 7, amend the title of Outreach Worker Grade 6 to Outreach Assistant, and to amend Chapter 70, Section 2, 70, Section 18, and 70, Section 26, as shown on a document entitled Amendments to the Salary Administration Plan Bylaw dated April 10th, 2018, with additions to the bylaw underlined and deletions stricken through therein, the entire text of which is on file at the Office of the Town Clerk and Board of Selectmen's Office. And this is due to the current outreach worker was reassigned to the position of outreach coordinator as approved by the Personnel Committee and assigned grade 7, but it would be retaining the original outreach worker position at the current grade, but would not be filling that position. So it's just leaving that position on the grid and creating the outreach coordinator position. And the other amendments to the bylaw were discovered in reviewing the bylaw in previous town meeting votes, that a vote taken in 2015 didn't incorporate all the redlined suggestions at town meeting at that time, what was printed in the handout. So it's incorporating those, and that's making the longevity payment on the anniversary date versus July 1st, and there's other minor language in there for changes.
Make a motion, we recommend approval of Article 29.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 30, to see if the town will vote to amend the Code of Lunenburg, Chapter 12, Article 8, Section 12 through 22, by inserting the bold text as follows. For the Agricultural Commission, the commission shall consist of 5 members, adding 2 alternate members, appointed by the Board of Selectmen at the recommendation of the town manager. A majority of the membership shall be substantially engaged in the pursuit of agriculture. Members shall be appointed to serve 3-year terms, except that the initial terms of the office shall be staggered at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen, so that approximately 1/3 of the terms shall expire each year. The appointing authority shall fill any vacancy based on the unexpired term being vacated at the recommendations of the Standing Commission.
Hi, Jeffrey Mendoza, 162 Lancaster, Agricultural Commission Chairman. I'll keep it quick. In the 5 years, roughly, of Agricultural Commission being in existence, with a majority of the members being principally engaged in the pursuit of agriculture, we found, especially during haying season, where 3 magic days without rain are so important, getting a quorum can be as difficult as it can be at town meeting. And we think that if we had a couple of alternates, we've had a lot of guests lately and support and people who are interested. It would allow us to continue the work of the commission even when the actual farmers might not be able to attend a Thursday evening meeting. So that's the simple request that we're making.
So the alternates would be able to vote if there wasn't a quorum?
Yeah, yeah, and we could, like I said, usually what we have, historically, like, we haven't had a lot of votes particularly, but just having the quorum. And the other thing that happens is a lot of times, after an hour and a half of a meeting, the farmers are looking at their watches because they have...
they get up early.
I've seen a lot of, they get up early, and I've also seen a lot of haying done. The lights on tractors are much better than they used to be. And these guys will leave the meeting, at 9 o'clock and go work for another couple hours. So that's where we're at.
So I'm assuming it would follow similar to the ZBA, that, if a situation came up that you did have to vote on, they wouldn't be able to vote unless they were familiar and had attended the meetings or had familiarized. I'm assuming those same rules would...
It's not quite the same, because that's statutory, that if it's a particular project for the ZBA, that they have to have been there for the entire... This
doesn't.
This doesn't. You would hope they wouldn't vote unless they knew what they were talking about, but it's not the same legal requirements.
I mean, the alternates would ideally be people that are involved. Participating already, so.
And we had talked about this at one point, dealing with volunteers and other things like that on various committees, of whether we should be adding alternate members as a training tool to have people learn various things of how to be on a committee member and learn.
It also would work the other way if there are members that were longer term stepping down. They wouldn't have to,
they would come in,
disappear.
It's a retirement plan.
Yeah.
Right. I make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 30.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks for hanging in there with us.
Article 31, to see if the town will vote to amend the Code of Lunenburg, Chapter 250, Sections 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, and 4.17, which are sections of the protective bylaw regarding permitted and prohibited uses generally, as well as the specific use provisions of the residence and outlying districts, recreation district, limited business residential district, retail commercial district, office park and industrial district, and village center district, as shown on a document entitled Uses Regulations by Zoning District dated April 10th, 2018, with additions to the bylaw underlined and deletions stricken through therein, the entire text of which is on file at the Office of the Town Clerk, Board of Selectmen, and Planning Board.
I would make a motion, we make recommendation at town meeting, and that we have Adam Burney here to talk about all the zoning articles.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I just, since the chair of the planning is here, and there is some time before town meeting, do you see a benefit in having a discussion before town meeting floor with the selectmen, or would you prefer to have us review the articles then?
We haven't closed our public hearing regarding that, so we're still having discussions amongst ourselves on Mondays. So I think we still have some edits we want to make as well, so.
You're fine with us hearing it at town meeting?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Craig.
And certainly the planning, not just Adam Burney coming, but the planning board as well. So if we can get the information ahead of time, that's good, but if it has to wait till town meeting, I'm fine with that too.
Article 32, to see if the town will vote to amend the Code of Lunenburg, Chapter 250, Sections 4.9 through 4.14, which are sections of the protective bylaw regarding the use provisions of the Water Supply Protection District, Route 2A Overlay District, Lake Whalum Overlay District, Tri-Town Smart Growth District, and Summer Street Revitalization Overlay District, as shown on a document entitled Overlay Districts, dated April 10th, 2018, with additions to the bylaw underlined and deletions stricken through therein, the entire text of which is on file at the Office of the Town Clerk, Board of Selectmen, and Planning Board.
How come it's dated April 10th?
That's to give them sufficient time at their next meeting. There's additional changes to be made to the
Yeah,
text.
since the planning board is still talking about their articles, and I think it's Article 32 through 35, I think we need, rather than running through them all, I don't think we're going to make a recommendation tonight, so.
Right.
Make a motion that we recommend approval at town meeting for Articles 32, 33, 34, and 35, all zoning articles.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah.
Thank you. All righty. That gets us through the warrant. Now, our next agenda item is to sign the warrant. And we want to include what we just did tonight, so.
No, so the warrant that gets posted around town doesn't have the recommendations. The one that's mailed to every household has the recommendations.
Okay.
So we're signing
So
the
you're
ones,
signing-
the ones to be posted.
Signing the warrant to be posted.
Okay. So, do we have a copy of it?
Yes.
Ready? Do I have a motion?
I move that we sign the annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. There's a couple.
Yeah.
Let me see what we got here. The next item is a request by citizen for debt exclusion question on the annual town election ballot.
And that the citizen that requested this agenda item is Mr. Passios.
Okay.
Dave Passios, again, 56 Whiting Street. Part of the requirements to approve the funding that we're trying to get in the article for the removal of the old primary, the $400,000, We're looking to do that outside of the budget so that we don't pull money from any of the departments and further frustrate their budgets. They were already having enough trouble fulfilling the needs of the townspeople. So we're going for exempted borrowing, which is borrowing outside of Proposition 2.5. This is not the same as an override in that the amount added to the tax bill goes away after the short-term borrowing is paid off. Mass General Law requires that we put a ballot question on the ballot following the acceptance of the article at town meeting. I don't have the number of dates. There is a limit to the number of days after the acceptance of an article that this vote is required. Annual elections this year would be within that window. So I had requested for this ballot question to be placed on the ballot. Requires a 2/3 vote by the select board to get it onto the ballot. And I'd like to make a point that I made this request on March 22nd, 11 days ago. And then I got a phone call this evening around 4:45 or so from the town manager telling me that there's a problem with the time frames. This is the first I've been informed, given less than 2 hours to try to mitigate the issue, if there was a way to mitigate it, other than being forced to go to a special election if the article is approved. It has not been widely advertised, but this has happened in a couple of other instances on projects that are presently in the pipeline. I choose not to mention what they were at this point. But it's becoming a pattern that there is a known problem with the process, and the people involved in that process are outside of town government. And they're being notified with no time to mitigate the issues. Therefore, if what the town manager put in her report this evening, that there is no time because of the combination of when this is being approved to go on the ballot and the printing of the town report and ballot is correct, then there needs to be some accommodation made by this board to get this to work and happen. I did my due diligence. You people know me by now. I do not leave a stone unturned. I follow the procedure along step by step. And yes, I'm a greenhorn at it, but I'm getting better. And I actually, one thing I wanted to add is that on the 22nd, when I sent this, it was a Thursday. I was in town meeting before 6 o'clock. I came up to the select board office, administrative assistant's office, and I verified that this email made it through. So I did my due diligence, and I feel that there needs to be an accommodation made or a way to find that this ballot question does get on the ballot for annual elections and that we're allowed to move forward. I do understand that if the article doesn't pass at annual town meeting, this is a moot point because this vote will not be valid for a subsequent meeting where an article is approved. But if we don't get it on the ballot and it does get approved at town meeting, the article gets approved, then right now I'm told the only alternative is to call a special election. And there we go, adding another cost. You question the cost of an annual town meeting. There's an expense to running an election also. One number I'd like to throw out real quick, it's in regards to the primary, and then I'm done talking. I did get an answer back from the DPW director. The monies expended to maintain the primary property on an annual basis are pretty much tied into utilities. It's roughly $1,000 a year.
Can we talk about the time frame for the annual town meeting warrant booklet to be printed? Okay, I don't understand the time frame issue. What?
So the booklet needs to get to the printer in sufficient time for them to print the booklets to get to the post office in time to meet the
And
number
when
of
is
days
that? And when is that?
Monday.
Okay, so why can't we add a question on the ballot?
The wording of the ballot question would have to be approved on the annual town election and voted at a town board meeting, and would also have to be reviewed by town council.
Is there a way to vote this subject to a review by town council?
Yeah, I guess I'm.
Oh, Siri just took that as a question, and I should have waited to see that. I should have waited for the answer. Sorry, the wrong tone. So the other thing is it requires a 2/3 vote of this board, which means 4 out of 5 have to vote it. So it's not guaranteed that this board is going to vote it either. So we don't have an understanding of what that is either.
I'm just looking though, Mr. Passios suggested that he requested this on the 22nd. This is our first meeting since the 22nd. If we were to vote it tonight, it needs to be reviewed by council in terms of the wording.
Right, but that review by council could have gone to town council prior. I mean, when the request was submitted 11 days ago, it could have gone to town council.
But the board hadn't
Well,
discussed
we
it.
could have had it, we certainly could have called a special meeting. I mean, I would have been amenable
But the
to that.
request-
If the townspeople vote it, regardless of how I feel about it, we have an obligation to bring it to a vote, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we're going to, in my opinion, I would call a special election, which is truly unfortunate because I think we could have avoided that had we acted sooner when the request was received.
I wouldn't call a special election for debt exclusion.
Well, I would.
you have to.
Yeah, I would. The townspeople at town meeting have voted. They voted something. You ignore that vote?
So
Put it on the meeting in November.
It has to be within 30 days.
So they need to
It
go
has to
next
be
year.
by September 15th.
I think it's inappropriate to put it on a special election.
Well-
So-
A very small number of people could spend $400,000.
So
That's
I'm not
why
gonna-
you have the election.
I'm not going to serve as town council, but I did look up the law, and it states, shall the city, town of whatever, be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to, and state the purposes for which the monies will be used.
It's not rocket science.
The ballot question as submitted is, shall the town of Lunenburg be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to demolish the old primary school and related structures and restore the site at 30 School Street?
So I think we meet it.
I think I will make, I think we should take this up. I think that town council can review it. Whether we're going to vote to do it is a different question.
Mr. Chairman, can I make one comment?
Yeah, in just a minute. Come on up. Yeah. I guess my point is, yes, we can make accommodations if it comes to our attention. But I mean, there's a process that says if town meeting votes for something, then there's within X number of days you have a ballot. Okay, it's just like we had a resignation from the school board the day after it was the last date to put an open position on the election ballot. And as a result, we missed it. We had to appoint somebody till the next election. I mean, this calendar.
Yep.
And, could we have made an accommodation? Yeah. I'm not sure we were aware of this until tonight.
So the other accommodation, we could hold a special meeting on Friday.
Right.
Plenty of time to do it 2 days.
See, I think the process says if town meeting passes it, you put a ballot question out.
But then you incur that expense? I mean,
That may be the legal thing based at this point, but if we had had this discussion last week,
we wouldn't be having it now.
But it wasn't determined in, when I received I was CC'd on the email on the 22nd. It wasn't known at that time that tonight would be when the board would be signing the annual town election warrant.
But as Mr. Evasol pointed out, I think that the language that's been submitted pretty well mimics what's been done before, and if town council determines otherwise, but we have until Monday. I mean, we could ask town council to review the wording.
I guess I'm not making the point that I wanted to make. I mean, if this is if it doesn't pass at town meeting, and it's on the ballot,
it doesn't mean anything.
Then it doesn't mean anything, and people
votes don't
vote.
get counted.
Then you know what? And if it does pass, then it's a real clear sign to this board that people want to do something with that building, and we bring that up at our next meeting.
And it may pass at town meeting and fail at the election. So basically,
that's possible. But what I'm saying is it may fail at town meeting and be on the ballot.
So, and it doesn't mean anything other than it gives a clear message to this board that something needs to be done with this building, and that the townspeople want to move forward with demolishing that building, which is information that, in my opinion, this board should have.
Then let's have a special election.
So why would we incur that cost if we don't have to?
So the way to do it is somebody makes a motion to accept this ballot question.
I would make a motion to accept the ballot question.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I guess I have one question. I want to make sure you can't go over the 400,000.
You can't do that.
It says the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to demolish the old primary school. Town meeting could limit it at 400. If it cost 500, we'd have to go back to town meeting and vote it again, but you wouldn't have a second vote at the election because you voted to exempt the borrowing purposes.
And that was the same thing that happened with the school, if I remember correctly. You can't put the amount.
Right, you can't, you legally can't.
The same thing that happened with the school, and I struggled with that too.
Did you?
It has to be that way? I mean,
No, that's what the state law specifically.
The state law specifically says you can't.
Prop 2.5 override, you put the dollar amount in, limiting that. The debt or capital exclusion, it is based on what is the debt, and it refers back to town meeting.
So town meeting has to say
the
what the debt
Right.
amount is.
So if the town voted 400 and the town voted this amount, it would be effective unless it was 500, and then they couldn't do the project unless we went back to town meeting and borrow.
And that, you see, but that's why if the town meeting turned it down, I don't want it on the ballot, and I'm not sure it tells me anything because they don't have a number.
Well, that's always going to be the case on a debt.
It's always going to be the case.
I want to recognize Mr. Passios.
Yep. The comment I wanted to make was your concerns about the wording of the ballot. I think you've rather settled in your mind with the information that Mr. Ebersol brought forward. But I do want to state that this part of the project, the wording of the citizens petition and the ballot question were done with the help of a municipal attorney very familiar with town government, especially in writing articles and ballot questions, has worked in many area towns in this area, and is actually a former resident of Lunenburg. That's all I wish to say.
When you present the article, how much money are you asking for?
$400,000.
That's what's in the
You aren't
article.
going to ask for more.
No.
They can't.
Thank you.
Just, oh, you want?
So,
Go for it.
did we have the vote? Did we not have the vote?
Still
Okay.
having discussion.
Okay.
Mr. Alonso wanted to speak.
Tom Alonso, 284 Lancaster Avenue. I know it's been mentioned, but I just want to make sure, or just remind people at home and here, that they, Prop 2.5 laws governed by the state strictly say that citizen petitions can't demand one. So the power of putting this on the ballot is completely within the Board of Selectmen in town. So when there's talk about an accommodation, there's no expectation that it will go on to begin with. And as far as given the tight time frame, I can certainly understand. I think the board should do what they want to do, but it is clear why the legislation is read that way. I mean, putting a $400,000 item that is going to increase people's taxes, and then say we're going to wait till town meeting potentially to do it, that should govern what the decision of this board is to put it on the ballot, really is to preclude what the power of putting something on the ballot is. So if you have some people, I mean, there's 6,700 to somewhere between 6,700 and 6,900 voters in this town, and we all know the town meeting on a great day probably gets 200. So if you're going to use that as a rate, well, if it passes at town meeting, then we should put it on there. That's not a big sampling to begin with. So I think you should decide to put it on or not put it on the ballot because you feel it's appropriate to be on the ballot to begin with, not wait till see what town meeting does, because town meeting itself does not have the power to put something on the ballot. Just to be clear about what is being discussed here. So there doesn't need to have any accommodation. I mean, there's no expectation that it would be on anyway.
All right, so let me be clear on what you're saying, is if it passed at town meeting, if the article passes at town meeting, there's no obligation for this board to put it on the ballot? Is that what you're saying?
There's no legal obligation, that's correct.
Okay.
And the statute provides that it's a 2/3 vote of the selectmen in order to put any Prop 2.5 a debt exclusion on the ballot.
And it clearly says that citizen petitions nor town meeting can demand something be put on the ballot. That in a town, cities, it's the mayor and city council. In towns, it's only the board of selectmen, and it has to be 2/3 vote.
Thank you.
So I just want to comment. I mean, it's up to the people of the town, and if they want to vote on it, then they should be able to vote on it. So I'm not going to say no. But I do want to express my concern of the pattern we're getting into of shooting from the hip at town meeting floor with these last-minute warrant articles that haven't been, completely vetted by the whole process. And it's a little bit troubling to me that we're going down this road so consistently.
And I would agree, because I really don't trust these numbers. And I feel like if we put it on the ballot, we're saying, we're giving it sort of our stamp of approval. We think this is worth putting on the ballot, and I really don't think enough work has been done to put it on the ballot.
Hi, may I comment?
Yes.
Thank you. Just as Tom did. So I think it turned into a little public hearing. When I worked on my citizen petition article, and I said this at the Finance Committee meeting, there's a lot of communities that encourage them and see them as a healthy part of the process, because in open town meeting government, the town is the legislative body. It's a whole branch of the government. Executive branch, legislative branch. And when I was researching my article, how to write it, how to submit it, I actually used data from other towns, because they have the information on their website. They offer access to town council if you're working on one. So like Dave had to work hard to use an attorney on his own. There's actually communities in the Commonwealth that give you access to your own town council, because they want citizen involvement. They want to recognize the legislative branch as an active part of the government. No true government only has an executive branch. There's no balance there. So when I hear all this negativity and Tom talk about, well, you really ultimately have the power about what's on the ballot, that may be true, but it doesn't represent how we should be treating each other as two parts of a whole. And so I just wanted to say, I don't understand why anybody would be afraid to do anything to ask the people. We don't know what the result will be, and it will tell us something. I don't see it as a negative, no matter what, to give people access to give their opinion. And to restrict those opportunities just takes away the legislative branch as a part of the government. And I don't understand what the advantage of doing that is.
There needs to be a plan, though. Everything we do up here feeds into a plan, a budget. What are we going to do next? The one-shot citizen petitions don't participate in that plan.
And
I already expressed that I think the people have the right to vote on it, and I said I'm concerned with the trend we've been in. So I agree, yes, the legislative branch, people should have the right to vote on it, but we can't keep doing these one-shot things. Everything should be part of the plan. I mean, if it's a citizen petition wants us to come in earlier in the process, a couple months before, and start floating an idea, that's the way to get it done. That's the way to participate in the plan. Go to the capital planning, go to the finance committee, get in the line with everything else that's important.
You can't submit citizen articles through that process. The citizen articles are put through the process of what you're required to do.
A project that you have an interest in and get it going, get it in front of their attention.
I think that's great. Then encourage and create the opportunity for that to exist, because I mean, But
You do, but you have to understand, the one, you have an
Thank you.
interest.
I'm concluding my part of the comment, and this is case in point, that citizens aren't welcomed to be a part of the process.
I don't know how many times I just said, I welcome people in the process, and I want people to be, voices heard. Everyone's voice should be heard. If there's, people want to vote on it, they can vote on it. But again, my concern is, there is a plan. There are avenues to go through if you have a concern. We're in a trend, we're starting to do these one-shot pokes at things that don't participate in the plan, and things that are important are going to get left behind. That's not the right way to operate a town, it's not the way to operate a business, it's not the way to operate a household. So if you have something that's important to you, please go to the Finance Committee, the Capital Planning Committee, the Parks Committee, the School Committee, and get in the process then. The one-shot things at town meeting is not a productive way to run the government to me.
I've got a question for the town manager. Did town council review the article itself, whether it's a legitimate purpose to borrow?
He did review the article on the warrant. Because it's a citizen's petition, the wording can't be changed.
Right.
He would have changed it slightly, but it's sufficient for a vote.
Because the only question I have as I was going further, and this is, if you Google Proposition 2.5 under mass.gov, there's any purpose for which you can borrow, we assume that this can be borrowed. But
I actually also have a problem with debt exclusion. I feel like we're just we raise the taxes every year to the Prop 2.5 limit without exception. We want to do the roads, we get a debt exclusion, we want to do something else, we get a debt exclusion. It's like, money we don't seem to use a lot of fiscal responsibility. I don't, every 4 years our taxes go up by 10%. I don't believe that's sustainable. I had asked that there be a discussion about the assumption that taxes be raised 2.5% every year, and was told it would happen during the budget discussions. I don't think we've had a discussion at all. I mean, salary increases of 2.5% and greater are routinely given out. The school department's proposed budget salary increased by 3.03% this year. But, I think it has to stop.
Well, I've made a motion that it go on the warrant, and I do believe that the people have an opportunity, we have an obligation to allow the people to vote. And I understand, and I don't want to debate it anymore. I made a motion. I don't know if there was a second. Can we move forward, please?
All those in favor of, now, just to be clear, to put it on the ballot?
On the annual ballot, on the annual election ballot, as written.
As written. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Nay. I just make a point that I'm willing to reconsider this again when the time is appropriate, and in the right sequence.
And certainly if town meeting votes the article, then it comes back to us.
It comes back to us, and I hope for another discussion.
Absolutely.
And, I just want to make one more comment. When people say come forward and get involved and get engaged, I think we have that, and I think that we stopped it. I think that I am extremely frustrated that we haven't moved forward with continuing charrettes, with continuing discussions. We did a survey, we don't want to take, only a couple hundred people responded, therefore they don't count. That's the impression that I get from this board.
No, I don't think that's true.
Well, that's the impression. I'm just making a statement.
You want to have a comment, I'd like to respond to your comment.
That's fine.
I think people have a right and a duty and an obligation, and they're welcome. But there's a process.
They don't feel
welcome. There's a capital planning committee, there's a process, there's a priority setting, and just because a special interest group that it's not subject to open meeting laws and doesn't do their deliberations in public comes up with an idea and has a couple of people that support it, doesn't mean they jump the line.
And
there's $20 million worth of stuff that's on our plate.
Okay, and when are we going to talk about it? When are we going to come up with a plan? When are we going to move forward? That's the frustration of the people. That's the frustration of me.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yes.
Maybe our May workshop be on town facilities. So, and we can do another, either charrette or discuss options for a long-term plan for the buildings.
Certainly, I know that we've said that the buildings has to be, I think we were waiting for data. And the vertex was the last of the pieces that we needed to do that, and I certainly support that.
Right. We'd also discussed inviting the Parks Commission.
Yep, and the
as
planning
far
board.
as their piece of town facilities and infrastructure into a workshop. So if we can incorporate either Parks into that meeting as well to discuss that piece of it. But the first step, I think, what we took after the Vertex report is moving all that data to the capital plan. Because it's data we didn't have. And then we now need to look at that data and see how we spread that cost out and how we prioritize each of those costs and what we remove. And
well, see, I would disagree with that approach. I think that before we decide how we're going to pay for things and how we're going to spread that cost out, I think we have to decide as a community, what is our plan? What buildings are we going to fix? Where is our town hall going to go? Are we going to sell property? Are we not going to sell property? Are we going to demolish buildings? Are we not going to demolish buildings? That's the fundamental discussion we have before we determine how we're going to pay for and what we're going to pay for. What are we going to do?
But at the same time, people won't support any of those plans unless they know what it's going to cost.
That's true.
So that's why we've been incrementally asking for more information, doing more research. Could it go faster? Certainly. But the thing is, this is not, that we didn't get into this mess in 1 year, in 2 years. It's been going on for 20 years or 40 or 50 years. So we have to get it right this time. We may be taking down the primary school, we may be doing an open space plan, we may be doing all the different things, but we got to do it with a plan, but it's going to take time.
I agree, we have to do it with a plan.
I frankly think there's got to be parallel tracks. I appreciate the citizens' involvement and other things like that. The only thing I will say is that just because we disagree with you does not mean we don't welcome you. We still get to disagree with you. So we keep talking about that. So that's important. It's important to keep talking. No, we don't.
We do. We do.
No, we don't.
And just another comment on the capital plan, though. Capital plan is a working document. As your priorities change, you update the plan. So if it's a decision, which it's overwhelmingly unanimous that the old primary building should be torn down, that's the cost we put into the capital plan. We remove that $1 million from the plan that was identified by Vertex and plug in those numbers. And as we refine those numbers, those get replaced.
And that may end up getting paid for with the debt exclusion, depending, based on the
or it may be,
or through regular debt.
Right.
And yep.
Or through the lease of a property, or I mean, there's a whole bunch of options. I mean, we don't know because we haven't talked about what we want to present as a plan.
But I think that's the key, to present a plan to have.
And I said that from the beginning when on the article.
All right, trying to finish this up. We have minutes from the 20th and the 29th.
Yeah, nice minutes, Jamie.
Yeah, well, somebody had to do it.
The minutes where
we were on TV.
The minutes where we didn't do anything, but we recorded it.
I have a warrant for accounts payable in the amount of $225,732.44. One for payroll. Is that what this is? Yeah. The payroll for $2,007.66. Accounts payable in the amount of $549,405.76. And payroll in the amount of $783,303.16. I'm gonna ask us, what do we got?
The election warrant.
Okay, this is the election warrant with the the open positions. Do I need a motion or just, did we just sign
It's
this?
just signed under.
Okay. There's a couple. I'd like to ask you for committee reports, maybe just highlights, if there are any. Anybody
Yes.
feel the need to?
The superintendent presented the budget to the finance committee. She's going to present it again at the school committee meeting tomorrow night. In response to a question about the new teacher's contract, the superintendent confirmed that 3 steps have been added in FY19 of $1,900, teachers who've taught 15 to 19 years, $3,800 for those who've taught 20 to 24, and $5,700 for teachers who've taught for 25 years. Clarification on the total amount was requested. They're in the salary line, so it's hard to figure it out. In FY19, those payments amount to $129,200. 8 teachers receiving $5,700, 10 teachers receiving $3,800, and 28 teachers receiving $1,900. The year-to-year increases, in FY18, the percentage increase was 2%, and that added almost $300,000. When you go into FY19, even though it's a 1% increase, because of those enlarged, increased steps, it's over $400,000. And in FY20, it's a 1.5% increase, but now those added steps are included, so it's another $300,000. So the last teacher's contract adds $1,002,735 as an increase over the 3 years of that contract.
Any other?
The comment I was going to make, I attended Lunenburg Water District meeting. They had their annual meeting last Saturday. Normal business. Dave Rogers was reelected moderator, and Mark Bush was reelected to the commission.
I have a quick update from MPO. The MPO met on March 28th, and we started talking about the 2019-2023 TIP. It's going to be an extremely difficult TIP. There is limited funds available in many, many projects. And actually, there's a real contention between some of the towns on projects that come forward because they're all high priority projects. But we did come up with a scenario that we think we're going to recommend at our next meeting. But we did talk about the UPWP, and I'm pleased to say that Lunenburg Walkability and Parking Study is currently included in the draft UPWP. And it states that the town of Lunenburg has expressed interest in identifying various projects that will improve the accessibility and safety of various modes of travel in the town center area. Staff will work with the town to develop an inventory of traffic, parking, and sidewalk facilities in the study area. 3 existing facilities will be analyzed and possible improvements will be identified. This study will complement the town's complete streets prioritization plan. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that one of the other UPWP tasks is going to be pavement management systems, and they're going to specifically be looking at the federal aid eligible roadways within the region. And Lunenburg has over, I think it's 25 or 26 federal aid eligible roads, so they're going to be looking at those and establish an inventory. So road manager software will be used. So I'm hoping that we can utilize that data to complement our pavement management system. So I would recommend that the DPW director keep in contact with Brad Harris on that specific task, because I think we could benefit and not have to duplicate efforts. And finally, I just want to mention, it was very sad news that Nikki Tischler, she was the liaison with MassDOT out of Boston, had an opportunity to work with her over the last several years. She provided guidance and assistance to the MPO with planning. Unfortunately, she passed away at the age of 29 from a brain aneurysm. So she was sad. She'll be sadly missed by the MPO and everyone that knew her.
Just planning board has a public hearing for the warrant articles. Is that the 9th?
Continuation of it.
So anyone interested in that, come out on the 9th to get involved.
And I'll just repeat what I said earlier, which is the Charter Review Committee is having a hearing this Thursday, April 5th, 7 p.m. here at Town Hall. It will be televised. We welcome written comments in advance, sent care of the town manager, but people are welcome to make comments personally as well.
And as the town manager mentioned, our upcoming schedule on the 10th, we're going to have a discussion on social media and then a board workshop joined by the Agricultural Commission and the Planning Board on Economic Development, and that will be next week on the 10th. Prior to asking for a motion to enter executive session, is there any public comment from the public?
I don't think I introduced myself the other times. It's Katie Adams from Williams Drive. And there's one thing that I like most, and if I've worked a little with anyone, they know it's consistency. And so I just can't help but point out that Article 5 on November 28th, 2017, there was a citizen petition warrant article, and all 5 of you voted to endorse it or accept it, even though it didn't go through the process. And so there's an inconsistency that is just choosing some to endorse, some not to endorse. So in all fairness, I just wanted to point out Article 5 was well received at town meeting. And so that has happened. And again, it's just to be consistent that if sometimes it's welcomed to have people go through the process and sometimes it's not, it can't help but feel a bit personal.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Medor, 98 Old Farm Road, just moved here last June. So first time actually attending a meeting, so thank you everybody. Two just real quick things. Just short story, when I was growing up, we had flooding in our basement. Backyard was a lot of runoff, going back to the discussion regarding the Flat Hill watershed issue. And the weirdest thing happened one summer. We decided to plant a garden, and all of a sudden the flooding stopped. And so it occurred to me when she was talking earlier that potentially the field that was previously used for planting and is now no longer nearby might actually have settled enough where the runoff is occurring, and that may not have been structured into consideration when the roadways and culverts and such were put in. So just a point of note. And then also in regards to the public access channel, I question as to what the actual viewership is for it and whether or not the increase of the Comcast's share toward, or the 2.5% to 5% is worth it. If it's just worth it on more of a public relations basis, or if it's actually being utilized effectively because the viewership is such where it's more of a demand. I question that from a citizen standpoint. So that's the only 2 notes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. I'd like to make a final comment on the article. To let the people at home and everybody still here, thank you for staying, that this article is moving forward to town meeting floor. At this point, there is nothing that I can foresee that will stop it from being on the warrant and taken up on town meeting floor. So this vote tonight does not kill the article in its present form. It allows us to bring it to you, the citizens of Lunenburg, to allow you to tell us if you agree or disagree. And I think that's one of the key points that will come out of this whole process, whether it passes or not. We brought something forward, we brought a proposal forward, finally, to do something. If you agree with it, that's wonderful, I'm happy. If you disagree with it, that's fine. I said this at finance also. We will rework it to your desires, and we'll bring it back again. I have one other question, if I may, because I'm a little bit confused about the time frame after the article's accepted. I heard 30 days, but I was given a date that the special meeting had to be scheduled by, and I believe that was in September. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep, for a contingent vote made at a town meeting annual town meeting, it's by September 15th. Any other town meeting, it's 90 days.
No, so it's 90, okay.
Okay. So we do have that shot. If we approve this article, we will be back here fighting for the special election if that's what it's going to take. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator?
I just wanted to advise.
Who are you?
Sorry?
Who are you?
Yeah, my name is Jose de Manes. Dave Rogers, 82 Highland Street. My wife calls me Frog, I guess this. I just wanted to update everybody that the Wallace Park build is going to take place on the 3rd and the 4th of May. Everything's been ordered, we've got work, we've got people lined up, so that will be completed by the 15th of May, which I understand how everybody's views are, but we pulled together, people got together, the basic form of democracy, and we made it happen within 3 months, and that to me is pretty significant, because kids are going to get the benefit of this. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any public comment from the board? Oh, sorry.
Jeffrey Mendoza, 162 Lancaster Avenue. I'm speaking as Jeffrey Mendoza, not as AgCom chairman right now. This is the second time it's happened. The first time I made light of it. It seems to me that we're required to say who we are, where we live. I personally find the Jose Jimenez crack to be offensive. Thank you.
Any public comment from the board?
Yes. Not to... Wait.
Hey, maybe if you came from where I came from, we'd have a problem.
Not to extend the conversation anymore, but
I'm not listening to you.
I do want to point out how the playground article is different from the other project, because there was an extensive community outreach program that went on for a year, probably, cleaning up the park.
Oh, no, we gotta...
Hold on just a second.
Anyway, that project did involve extensive community outreach, longer than just a warrant article. There was money raised ahead of the article coming forward, and it was just a longer process, a more involved process with the community and a town discussion. So I would put those in two different categories. And even still, when we approved that, I warned of my concerns of the one-shot town meeting articles.
Okay, I entertain a motion to enter executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21, Reason Number 3, to discuss a strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the government's bargaining or litigating position and the chair declares so. This is in regard to the Settlers Solar LLC versus Town of Lunenburg et al., not to return to public session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Mr. McQuaid? Mrs. Bertram?
Aye.
Mr. Eversole?
Aye.
Aye for myself. Mrs. Luck?
Mrs. Luck?
Yes to executive session?
Yeah, well, I need your vote.
You need your vote.
Thank you. Good night.